Sorry. I got a headache. I said if somebody pushed me today, it was me. I was not waiting for him. Let's hear it, Laura.
Okay, so this is our workshop, and tonight we have finance, operation, maintenance, public works, and community development. So we'll start with RJ.
Okay. I only have just a couple items for tonight. We have a lot of other items to go through. The first thing I would like to mention, are there any questions on vouchers?
I had a couple, but we can look at them afterwards if that's okay.
Sure.
Nothing major.
If nothing like that, the second thing I want to report on, we did receive 2 bids on the council chamber equipment. Going through those bids now. One was a company called Hubbins, which is in North Spokane. Another one was Premier Sight and Sound. They're local. I will tell you right now, their numbers are over what we put in the 2018 budget. So I'll bring that possibly for consideration when I look at some of the details. And
How much more?
Hubbins is about 4,000, but we're thinking there's some equipment in there that we do not need. So.
Does the equipment that you guys are talking about, I mean, obviously it's going to be pertinent to what we're trying to accomplish here. But are we also looking at potentially being able to expand upon that? And what I mean by that is, as we grow and we try to get out to the community and have good visibility in this room unit, will we be able to add on to it? If we want to add another screen somewhere so other people can see it, if we want to have a screen there, you know, just kind of being prepared for that mentally, and so we're not saying, okay, now we have to go buy all new stuff because we want to add to it.
Right. I would probably say the life of the equipment may be limited just based on the technology. If we get crazy and I do an addition, you always got the wiring. That's probably the biggest issue, is the wiring. I think everything's compatible to be basically input screens with our TVs and microphones. Everything like that, I think it's all compatible for expansion. So it might need to take a look at what the amp has to take out and make sure that can handle.
So with the current bid, what are we all talking about? We're talking about camera, mics, speakers, the audio and visual portions of it.
What about the computer to support it?
We have one already, and it is, we just got it in here this year, so it's a newer computer, and it's we basically took we gave it that high-tech link, and they made it into what Andrew would call, I'm going to throw you under the bus, sorry, supercomputer. But the technology is there for us to run on that system. The difference between the two companies, Hubbins and Premier Light and Sound, and we'll look at both. Premier Light and Sound probably push the envelope more, so we're looking at the technology and expansion. They probably have more of that than they do coming higher. Okay. This is not this particular situation.
Question. How many monitors are we looking at?
I think ideally we're probably looking at 3 on how they're positioned and how they move out. I think what we saw from both of them, we're looking at something here visual for people to look at in the back of the room, and a couple of items coming out here.
Used to consider something over in this corner here.
Yeah,
the audience can see it.
So there's visual for everybody to see it, depending where you're sitting.
And they articulate. So one would be over your head, Mike. I think it was 75 inches.
Could be like a big one over here.
Over there,
and
then 2 smaller ones
here. One here, and one on this side.
Okay.
And that was consistent with the 2 bids. If you look at that.
We go a little further on Shane's question for expandability. If we expanded this room at some rate, I'd hope that the equipment would be where we could expand to have additional monitors if necessary.
It wouldn't be able to do that.
Pardon?
Yes, it would. We would have it. It would be able to do that.
Okay.
I mean, if we had more monitors, or just more inputs for it.
Very good. Thank you.
And then the last was, so before I turn on the resolution on the financial policies, I want to see if you had any questions regarding that.
I know this sounds really, really nitpicky, but with our luck, if I don't ask the question, something will get stuck in the middle. So we talk about up to 1,000 and over 1,001. So what happens if we have something that's $1,000.50? Because we have a gap in several of the areas. We've got to go to like 5,000 and then 5,001 and up. So there's nothing covering these gaps.
So I need to change 1,000 to 1,001. That's the change to make, so we don't have to get it.
Well, however it needs to be worded, but can you see where I'm saying if we do, then we have this gray area that nobody knows what to do with, because if it's $1,000, it sends who approves it, because it doesn't.
So you have to grab it to the highest dollar if it goes above that amount.
The policy say, but I think RJ's right, you just round it up, or you just put up to 1,001 or up to 999, whichever.
It's just for consistency, because I saw there were a couple places where it was $999 versus zeros, so for consistency.
So I would make it, the intent is for the directors to have approval to $1,000.
Yeah.
Anything above $1,000 should go up to the next approval level, which would be the mayor.
$1,000.01
Yeah,
goes
Right.
up.
Yeah.
but it says 1,001
Okay.
and zero.
The
Again,
intent
just,
is 1,000.
yeah.
So can they make a motion to amend the
They can
ordinance
check,
when you
Yeah.
have a first read, we can
Modify it.
make that
make
modification?
that modification.
Because I would just hate for an auditor to come in and see a gap in what they're,
Correct. No, I agree.
sorry.
No,
I know it's, like I said, it sounds a little nitpicky. And then the only other thing I noticed was we got rid of addendums or amendments A and B. So that left us with C, so should C become A? Okay. And then
and A and B weren't necessary, there were examples of what we used in there. And one of the examples doesn't apply anymore, so.
okay. So we'll just note all that when we go to discuss it. Thanks.
Sean, have you seen the draft on that?
On the financial
On the
policies?
financial policies? Anything to add?
No, I think most of it was just that RJ was making with regard to dollar figures. The only thing I really did was move the check cashing issue down to the exhibit, which was Exhibit C, to have it apply with regard to not taking checks involved.
Is that going to be citywide, or is that just for?
Just at the golf
Just
course.
try that.
The issue being that the other city, when we have a return check, we have some kind of recourse that we can either hold, like if a building permit or library fine, we have something we can hold that, where that's a golf course, someone gives us a bad check, where they don't have there's not an account.
Have we experienced many bad checks there?
On occasion, a handful, depending on the year.
Yeah, I don't have a challenge with that.
You aren't getting any fines by the bank for that, are you?
So anytime we have a bad check, we have a plan analysis, so it depends on how much activity of the month we pay or may not, but usually there's like $25 service fee for them to have to return it. And then we, in some situations, we'll send them to collections, if it's accounts that we can follow up.
So, and the service fee from the bank or from us? To the person?
We'll pass the service fee on to the person originating the check.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why I'm asking, we might talk to the bank. Typically, from what I've experienced and seen with most banks, is when there is a fee associated with a check that bounces and it's from that party, that fee can be waived, not held against you, because it wasn't really your fault. There was nothing
Nothing on purpose.
you could have done about it.
Correct, and we've been passing that charge on to the person who originates it, and we should collect on it.
So how many did you have to collect, or were you able to collect?
On the checks?
No, you said you had 5 or 6. Were you able to?
Oh, on the golf course, we usually can't, because it ends up that the account itself is either closed or the bad address, they have no forwarding address or anything like that on it.
Did Chris have any comment about the job?
It's better, yeah, so this is what a request he asked. He says most of his patrons come in with debit cards or
Good.
credit cards.
So he's comfortable with it?
Yes.
Excellent. Very good, thank you.
Just one other thing I had a note on, sorry. So it's page 53 of our packet, page 20 of the policy, where we added, it talks about periodic comparisons of service delivery will be made to ensure the quality services are provided to the citizens of Liberty Lake at the most competitive and economical cost. Privatization and contracting with other governmental agencies will be evaluated as alternatives to service delivery where appropriate. We added, after consultation with City Council, programs that are determined to be inefficient and or ineffective by the mayor shall be reduced or reduced in scope or eliminated, I would propose that shall become may, as we've run into trouble with shall versus may in other documents before. And reading this tells me that the council can be consulted all we want, but it's still gonna happen.
I wasn't able to follow the page number.
Okay,
What's
so
the
it's
section is it under?
It's on page 53 of the packet, it's page 20 of the financial policy document. Section, 1310.9.
You're recommending go from shall
To
to
may.
may.
Because the point of adding after consultation with city council is to give us input, but it says shall be reduced.
I
To me,
agree.
it negates our
Yeah.
consultation with the council.
I agree. Yeah.
Y'all are gonna be sorry I'm working on contracts these days.
No,
No,
it's
we
good.
appreciate it.
It's a good thing.
So that would be a motion. that
Yeah.
we can-
Anything else?
Anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you.
Jen?
Okay.
Well, good evening. We're going to kick off with Stephen here. Ready?
We always
Being honest.
We're just doing a quick informational piece for you on purchasing / leasing / renting of heavy equipment for snow for future. So he's been doing quite a bit of research and can explain a little bit of the three. There's three options: renting, purchasing, or 3-year lease with option to buy. And we have some cost comparisons for you. This is for two loaders like we have out here right now and 1 grader.
With a wing. So as you can see, we've had a little bit of equipment around here this winter, and we are spending a little bit of money this winter, and I do believe this is at a 4-month rental, and personally I think this is a little on the conservative side. Because basically it's on a 4-week cycle, not on a full actual month when you're looking at lease or renting. So when I worked for the county, we did a lot of leasing, because for us that was our best bang for our buck. Included maintenance, oil filters, service. We just had to supply the oil. So I did some research and reached out to a couple of companies, and our cheapest one, which came back with a 3-year lease, gave us, right here, this is what it cost us for 3 years for leasing. This one over here is what it costs us for 3 years for renting. The only problem with the leasing fact is you'll see this number here. Wings for graders, that is not something typical that they rent. So when I was talking with Cat on renting this equipment for the winter, they basically go out to contractors, find out who's got a few wings they want to sell, and there's only a certain amount of people that actually get them. We were this close to not getting a wing this year, which in my opinion, that wing has been great, particularly with our 5-lane roads. Like Country Vista, you go up and down with the wing and the grader, that's the only machine you need on that road. It'll take, I think, about a 40-foot swath between the two passes. So you have to purchase the wing, just like we did with our blades, because nobody rents those. So in my research, it doesn't seem like we actually save a whole lot of money over the 3 years, but when if we decide we do not want to keep the machines, we can still turn around and sell our wing and make a little more money. As you can see, our purchase price, if you guys decided to purchase all 3 equipment, is about $650,000.
What's the lifespan if we purchase?
Right.
About 30 years. Depends on how long you want to keep them, how well you maintain them, to be honest with you. We had equipment that was 30 years, and if you look at some of the small contractors, they got equipment that's probably 50 years old. I do not recommend purchasing right now. I would recommend probably doing the 3-year lease, because we are growing so fast that I would hate to purchase and spend that amount of money, and then all of a sudden later find out, 5, 6 years down the road, that we don't need, say, a loader. We need another grader, or we need another truck instead of a loader. So, in my opinion, the lease is great too, because we're going to spend roughly the same amount in the 3 years as what we are leasing or renting. But with the leasing, we're going to have the machines all year long. So if we have projects, or you guys see projects, we actually have the machines. We don't have to rent anything. It will be a little hard to keep them busy during the summer, I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of cities that purchase the machines just strictly for snow plowing. It's the only reason they have them. My last job, we had a brand new 2012 loader and it had 200 hours on it. It was 4 years old, so you can see there's not many hours actually put on it. Yes, sir.
If we lease these for 3 years, I assume we can purchase them for the residual?
Correct.
And what is that residual?
Right here is our residual.
Okay.
So the grader would be a $200,000 balloon payment, and each loader is a $130,000 balloon payment. I did check into a little bit smaller grader than the one we had. We don't gain anything, because popularity-wise, it's not that popular, so it's harder for them to turn around and sell rather than the size of what we have out there now.
Are we obligated to buy at the end of the lease?
Nope. At the end of the lease, you turn. It's kind of like going and leasing a car. We're allowed 500 hours a year on each machine. If you go over it, there is a charge, just like if you did with your mileage. But at the end, if you don't want them, you can turn it back in, or you can turn around and renew the lease and get 3 brand new machines and keep going with the lease. Yes, Shane?
Have you, I imagine there's been discussion on if there's damage to these pieces of equipment, how that puts us into play?
It'd be like if we were to, say, tear the blade off of it,
right.
No different than renting. We're liable for it. The nice part about the leasing is this company, they supply everything. We just have to change the oil. So if there's an issue with it, we call them, they come out, fix it. Normal wear and tear stuff like hydraulic hoses, if the one blows, you have to pay to get that fixed, but that's pretty standard. Yes, you had a question?
Well, you pretty much answered most of it with Shane. I guess I would go on with the lease. I know if you lease a car, different from running them, if at the end, if there is more excess use to that vehicle, dings and dents and stuff, then they will charge you more.
Dings and dents I'm not positive on.
Well, dings and dents, the glass gets broken in the cab, things of that sort there.
Yeah, we would be liable for that one. That'd be about this, like I say, the same as renting a car. And
I, for one, can see the advantage of having the lease if we have it here a year round. Because if something comes up, we want to do some grading or something like that, it's great to have it versus going out and getting something on a temporary basis. So.
Yes.
And I like the lease option to purchase if we want to. This is only our first year doing snow removal, and it's been phenomenal, and you guys have done a great job. We don't know for certain that that's the path we want to be in 2 years, 3 years. So I like that this gives us an opportunity to make that decision in year 2 if we decide that we want to go that route.
Correct, and that's what I like about it, is it allows us to fill our shoes rather than, grow with our feet, like instead of just trying to fill the shoe all at once.
Yeah.
Because we might get into it, like I say, and find that we don't need another loader, we need another truck instead of a loader. I mean, it gives us that flexibility. It gives us the machine year-round. We are saving a little bit of money. And to me, that's my best option that I like.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
You said that you're allowed 500 hours. I have no idea what that translates to use, okay? Is that enough? Is that not enough? Do you think we're going to get behind it on that, or what's your opinion?
My opinion is I think that's basically 500 hours, 2,080 working hours in the year. So that's 3 months worth of work at 40 hours a week. So basically we have to keep it busy pretty well all winter long, plowing just about every day in order to hit that 500 hours. I do not think we're going to get near that. I'm thinking 250, maybe 300 if we have a bad winter plowing.
And if you go over there, Chris, is that just a one-time charge, or does it change the lease plan to a higher rate because you're now in a different user bracket?
No, it's when you go over, it's so much an hour over the allotted amount. So if you did, in the 3 years, if you did 1,560 hours, they're going to charge you X amount of dollars for 60 hours. Kind of like when you go over on a mileage on a car, they charge you 50 cents per mile for overage, same concept.
And is that payable every year?
This is, I believe I did year leases, which is one payment every year, and that would be the price every year.
Thank you.
Yep.
I've already answered this. Did you say it's 500 hours a year?
A year.
Okay, if we use 300 hours in 1 year, does that extra 200 hours go to the next?
Next year, I would have to double check.
Or is it like, another question would be, is it 1,500 overall for the 3?
I think it's 1,500 at the overall of the 3. I would have to honestly double check.
Okay.
I have a call into him because I'm still also trying to find out the maintenance that comes with purchasing. But
Yeah,
he's,
the excess carries over or under, I think that would be outstanding.
yeah, I do believe that's how it is.
Okay, good.
He hasn't said anything to me of every year you have to turn in hours or so. But like I said, I'm not honestly worried about the hours that much on getting there.
You guys are probably out there running around just with burner piles, right?
We've been doing a little training with some guys.
Do we get to jump in on this garage?
No, not you. Senior drive.
Come on, you guys let me know when and I'll get the equipment out there.
Stephen, real quick, so
Yes.
we're hopeful that this is towards the end of our winter this year.
Yes.
Is a year like November to March, or is it the calendar year? That's one question. And then my next question is, when do we have to put our order in to make sure we get this equipment?
Okay, now, as far as I remember, it's when you sign the contract, when the machine gets delivered, that's the start of your
1 year.
your lease.
Okay.
As far as time goes, I don't have to have an answer tonight, but I do want you guys to mill on it, think about it. If this is something you guys want to do and the path you want to go down, I would like to do this sooner, within the next couple council meetings. This company does have a grader sitting in Boise, and they have a loader that will be delivered in April if we choose to go for those. Other than that, it's 5, 6, 8 months out until we get our machines. So just the lag time, I mean, they can't really give me any times at the moment until the order is actually placed, that this is what we want. Yes?
Did you say that you're doing 1 year leases for
They're-
the 3 year renewable for 2 more additional years?
This is a
Or are you
3-year
doing
lease.
a 3 year lease? So we're obligated for the 3 year period,
Correct.
regardless of what happens.
At the end of the 3 years, we turn it in, or you can balloon payment amount.
But after
If you
year
want it to
one.
be done after year 1, is there an option?
There is I'd have to find out the exact amount, but there is a penalty for backing out of the lease. And it's quite hefty. Because I asked about that, and he says he doesn't know anybody that's backed out because it hasn't paid for it.
Is the lease assignable then? So if we can't use it anymore and we want to turn it over to Coeur d'Alene or Spokane Valley, we can assign the lease?
I would have to check with that one.
Good question.
I would venture very educated yes, the answer to that is no.
That would be my
That's
assumption.
kind of my guess too.
I can ask.
I guess the question would be, is it releasable? So if Spokane Valley, we have a 3-year lease, we use it for a year, we don't want to use it anymore, let's say, so you have 2 years left to remain, you could lease it to Spokane Valley. We pay the payment and they pay us.
It's subleasable.
I don't know. That's another question I'd have to ask.
Good question.
What else you got, Chris?
What's that?
What else you got?
That's
Steve,
about
I'm
it
sorry.
for the equipment. So like I said, my recommendation, I think, is to go with the 3-year lease. It gives us the room to grow. We're saving a little money. We're going to have the equipment all year long. The only thing we have to do to it is change the oil. And they supply the filters and everything for us. And as for the amount of hours, we change it maybe once a year. About every 500 hours.
So would it be reasonable if we can make a decision and vote on it by the second meeting in March, maybe?
So March 20th, we have a council meeting on the 6th, and I think on the 20th. Why don't we bring it back on March 20th? Is that okay?
Yep. And I will look into those questions you guys asked about, sublease made out, and penalties for if we come out after the first year. Okay. Any other questions?
Steve, I apologize for not calling you by the right name.
No, that's all right.
I'm handing out a small packet of just some topics I'm going to go over, things that we're working on right now for parks, programs, calendars, you name it. So so everybody has it. The first thing that is on the very top of your packet, I wanted to talk about is the fireworks. So the fireworks, after meeting with the pyrotechnician we used last year, have increased in cost. We budgeted $10,000 the last couple of years for the fireworks program. And it turns out the program that we received last year from this pyrotechnician, due to product inflation, we can't get the same program we had last year. So the same program that we had last year is now $11,500.
Have you validated that inflation through other,
So
or are they just trying to
no,
work us?
I think it's pretty right on. I have one other company here in Washington that I can get a bid from. I got a bid from them last year, that company, and I went back and looked at last year's bids. And so this is a little pyrotechnics is a bit of an art, but if you look at the count, basically it's the total fireworks that you're paying for in the show. The program A is 600 fireworks total, and program B for 11,500 is 900 fireworks total. Last year they were approximately 900 fireworks for $10,000. One of the competitive bids that we received last year was $10,000 for only 400 fireworks. So yes, I can get another bid to kind of keep this in check, but I have a feeling they're going to bid another 400 fireworks. So I'm happy to do that, just to keep this fresh every year if you'd like me to, certainly. But looking at last year, they're giving us a pretty nice show for $11,500 or $1,000.
One thing that really jumps out is the grand finale, going from 300 to 123.
And that, in a fireworks show, the grand finale is, they say that it's the beginning and the end is where you try to focus the concentration of all of the fireworks.
Well, I see the grand total overall is substantially higher, 915 versus last year 6 something, but it's close to 200.
Well, if you look at
the grand finale.
Yeah, the 2-inch. So the 2-inch shells don't cater so much. The 2 and 2.5 inch shells don't cater so much to the entire city. So the focus on this, when we met with them, was how do we develop a program that can be seen throughout our entire city, not just Pavilion Park. And with that, that's 4-inch and 5-inch shells. So, yeah, this is the second bid, and I just received this Program B late today. So I haven't had a chance to pick it apart and question them on it. So I would be happy to ask them about that in the grand finale, because they did share with me that the grand finale and the opener is the wow factor.
Looks like the main thing that's been eliminated is the 2-inch Sousa designed bombardment shells.
Yeah. And I don't think that we're, those lower end, those smaller shells, we're not missing much. It is the larger ones, but
Okay.
so just some food for thought, and any feedback or comments, or I'm going to need it to be steered in a direction. I definitely can ask some more questions on that closing, that grand finale.
I guess the one question I have, Jennifer, is kind of going back to what Steve was talking about. How about looking at a 3-year, 5-year commitment?
And they actually would like that. They said that they can work with us better on a 3-year contract. So that's something I could also pursue.
But we're not, theoretically, we're not going to go out of the fireworks business, at least for another couple of 4th of Julys.
Yeah, if we can get a lower price overall.
Okay, so I will follow up with that.
What about the possibility of asking the question, if you haven't asked this, that what would it run to do this 694 that we did last year? What would that cost increase to? I know we're looking at It was 10,000, so only $15 difference. That's substantial in numbers. So out of curiosity, I don't know if the council would be curious of that. See
Say
what
that
would
one more
be-
time.
612.
what would be the-
Between 6 and 12.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, what would the cost be if we said, okay, we want exactly what we got last year?
Yes, I will ask that. It's gonna be at
Would
least
council
12.
share in that curiosity?
So same program price this year.
Well, from my standpoint, is it, I'm not comparing apples to apples here. I've got apples and oranges,
Yeah.
and I'm not having a
Yeah.
challenge with that. But I am curious, if for last year it was 10,000, what would the same show cost?
Okay.
If it was 13,000, for an example, then I know I'm looking at 3,000,
Right. Okay.
just out of curiosity.
Sure, I'll get a number for that. So if I can get these questions answered, which shouldn't be a problem, I can bring this back and then hopefully, we have to have an agreement by April 2nd just for scheduling purposes because they need to finalize things with us to keep moving forward. So, but that still gives us plenty of time.
What's in the, what have we budgeted for that?
10,000.
Thank you.
This is our what, fourth year?
Third.
Third.
2 with Western
Second
and
with
1
them.
with Aerotech. This will be our 4th year. And then, so the next, did anybody have any other questions on fireworks?
Thank you.
Okay. The next packet is just an update for you on what our programs look like this year in case citizens ask what's going on for kids in the summer sports camps, summer day camps, and such. And so we have our two contract sports groups, that's Skyhawks and Challenger Sports. So this is just so you have something in your hand if people ask what can I do with my child this summer. So we have sports camps and day camps. Yes.
When will this open up for the registration?
They're open now.
Open now.
So it's on our website already?
Yep. In fact, do you want to go to that now? Okay, so that leads us into some more information for you to steer people to. And what I've done is on the events, on the very front homepage of the city's website, you just click City of Liberty Lake, and you're going to get this page. I've added to the events calendar on the right. It only used to have like 5 items on it, and most of it was city council meetings. I've actually added all of our activities.
Nice.
And so that includes events, that includes even some things like Easter egg hunt. It does have the polar plunge, splash and dash on it, polar plunge. We're not doing private events on there, no private reservations, anything like that. It needs to either be a nonprofit or a city-sponsored event. So if people aren't sure what's going on, this calendar, all they have to do is click on that homepage. Or if you at any time want to know what's happening in the city, and if you click on the link or click on the calendar where it says View All, it'll actually show the whole month calendar. So it's just a nice way for you to stay updated on what's going on. And then Tate is also, I'm having her share these events as they come up and they approach to the city Facebook page, message board. We're also going to add the library's activities on this.
Great.
So it's going to be jam-packed.
I'm looking forward to more stuff being on the message board because we've had some comments from people saying there's only 5 things on there. And we've got the date, the temperature, the council meeting, and so the more stuff that we can get on.
Time of the year.
I know about a week ago she had it pretty heavily loaded, but it definitely kind of waxes and wanes with activities. But this summer it should be.
Great, thanks.
It should be, yeah, you're going to have go through 3 lights to see it. So then, that takes us to the March calendar. So we started doing this in January or December this year, maybe even November. But this calendar is just for your reference. It's kind of a repeat of what you see up there. It has planning commission meetings, parks commission meetings, library activities, and then it will also, it's got the Easter egg hunt on there, so it's starting to show our city park events. So that's just for your reference. It does change quite a bit, especially with the library and their activities, but as of right now, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, Jen, this really is good.
It's helpful, and that's the whole point.
It's really
just
helpful.
all these different ways we can get it out there, whether it's a hard copy or whether it's social media or whether it's a message board or a text message or any of that.
And as the farmers market approaches, if we can have a stack of these for each
Yes.
month or so.
I will have
great.
I'm going to have a stack of stuff for each choice this
List of
year.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, try that again this year.
Yeah. And then, let's see here, I'm gonna keep this moving right along. We're still working on the final agreement for the Centennial Trail agreement. It hasn't been finalized yet. It's in the hands of Washington State Parks. As soon as I have that, I will be bringing that to you in a council meeting for your review and feedback on that. And then the Parks and Arts Commission, I just thought I'd share something really cool. We actually have a student commission position on the Parks and Arts Commission. We have not filled it yet. We actually have 4 applicants that applied, which was really exciting. And so we're working with the commission right now, but it turns out that it was suggested, we haven't finalized this, but it was suggested to actually, instead of picking one student, invite them all to be student commissioners, and whether they tag team meetings or trade off projects or whatever. But we hate to turn any of them away because they were so anxious and excited about it.
Great idea.
That's great.
It was, yeah, so that was really exciting, so we'll keep you updated on what happens with that. And we may have 4 student commissioners. And the last thing is on the next agenda, I hope to have some equipment. It's mowing maintenance equipment, not snow equipment, on the agenda. This was budgeted equipment for the season. It's in the 2018 budget. It's 2 gators and 1 mower. So I hope to have those on the next agenda for approval. Are there any questions?
No, you did good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as Public Works and everything that we've got going on right now, you're going to have 2 contracts for you this evening. One is for our Appleway restrike project over on east end of the city, and the other is for the Country Vista Crossing out there on Nebo. Both the bids came in under the engineer's estimate and all the budget, so we're in good shape. The 2 projects that we also have out bidding right now, Orchard Park is out to bid, and we also have the Appleway Signal there at Signal and Appleway out to bid as well. Those open up this coming Monday. That's really good. Do any of you have any questions?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one I wanted to talk with you about is the company that's the low bid for the striping. Are they known?
They are.
Have they have any proven performance? I mean, their bid is so low that it makes you want to ask why. I'm assuming you did. Tell us about it.
So I investigated their company. Everything that I could find, I talked with them at length about their bid. I talked with the person who was there in attendance at the opening, and then I called up their company separately and talked with them. And they're comfortable with their numbers. They're reasonably local. They're out of the Tri-Cities area, so it's not like they're coming from the other side of the state. I questioned them about product and application technique and a couple things that if they were a fly-by-night or somebody that was just used to doing grocery store parking lots, they would not have known, and they were knowledgeable about the product. So as of right now, I'm comfortable with moving ahead with them.
Are we still buying the paint for the striping?
We're going to be revisiting that. We learned some things about that particular paint this year. It's a good quality paint that we used this last season, but it may be a good quality paint and not the right application. So we may be looking at a different type of paint for this season.
With the bid that you guys are looking at, did you have an opportunity to find out what other type of jobs they've done or referrals to the point? You know, are these guys?
So we can look into that, and I always do. So we're still in the process of going through making sure that everybody is well qualified.
Following up on that one particular issue is, would there be any benefit to you to doing some paint testing areas to try to determine which is the better paint for our seasons and just coming back and finishing it in the proper paint? Or the one that holds up the best?
Yes, there could be some benefit to that. I would typically go and check with the different municipalities, because there are a few that I've been watching over the past year
Okay.
to see how their paint has been holding up. We know how they plow their roads and different things, and so we're going to be following up with them.
Sounds great.
Making sure they're with paint.
Thank you. The last thing I have is in the other contract with Beacon. Is it Beacon?
Yep.
The one of the final sections in it, all right, towards the very end, it says installing a city-owned or city-provided system.
Correct.
Okay, could you tell me what that system is? Why are we providing it as part, and not part and parcel to the bid, et cetera?
Yeah. So the crossing units that we see and we have throughout town, we get a very good price on those.
Is that what that is talking about?
Yes. And so
Thank you.
contractor, we
That's
supply
good enough. Good
assemble
enough.
it, hand it over to the contractor for
Yeah,
installation.
I just didn't know what they were referring to at the time in that bid. Obviously you do. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Chris, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Andrew, thanks for your time earlier today. I had the same questions as you did about the low bid, so I appreciate that. The one thing that comes to mind going forward is when this came to us with your estimate a couple weeks ago, it was in the $80,000 range.
Okay.
And my fear going forward is if something like this comes to us and say it's $80,000 and we all say, oh heck no, we don't want to spend $80,000 on this. But like in this case, it came in at 30 and we probably would have been okay with that. So how do we reconcile, and I know estimating is, I won't even say it's an art.
It's not, but yeah.
You know, it's an educated guess, I know. But how do we manage that gap where, you know, some of us may have voted no on going forward with that project based on the $80,000 estimate, where some of us may, you know, then, you know, have voted a different way if it was 30,000. How do we deal with that difference?
So I would say that, you know, we're always going to use our best judgment when we're putting together estimates. We hire professionals to make sure that they're using their best judgment when they're putting these estimates together. Some items are more difficult than others to estimate. Striping is one of those, especially when you get into relatively small quantities like what we have on the Appleway job. These guys, most of them are used to turning loose on miles and miles of DOT or, you know, county highways. So I would say that we're always going to use our best judgment and most qualified professionals that we can putting the estimates together. You know, that said, there's always the chance that someone is going to provide you with an estimate that's, you know, high or low. That's just the nature of what it is. But we're always going to do our best to make sure that we're providing good numbers.
Was even the averages, I know, as I told you earlier, I was trying to cut this thing every way but Sunday to try to figure out, I mean, even, you know, the averages were in the mid-40s, you know, even taking out the high and low.
So I think that's a great question, because we try to be conservative when we put our estimates together. I know Andrew doesn't. Not too conservative though, because if you're too conservative, then
you
don't have a project. But for instance, on the trailhead irrigation system, the estimate we got ranged from $800,000 to $1.2 million. So that's the range, and it's a factor of many things: the bidding environment, the competition, how hungry your contractor is, time of the year, availability, the economy. Are they here for another job that they can, you know the story because you're a project manager. So it's kind of an art, I think it is, but we always try to do our best, but you know, we could be off, and in this case, we got a really good bid because some of the contractors actually bid what our estimate was. So,
well, one was, it was really interesting because we had one that was really high.
Right.
And then one that was really low, and then the other three were right, you know, within a good range of each other.
Very good.
So
I just think it's a good lesson for us to learn going forward when we're talking about estimates. There is always a possibility that it comes in really low.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the best things that we can go on is the fact that you and the rest of the staff are doing what you do best, looking out for the citizens. So we know that you're doing the best you can do with that issue. So as long as you keep that kind of attitude, good for you. Good for you. Good for the citizens.
Anything else? Thank you.
Signage.
Or no, report. So there's actually 3 items that we're going to cover tonight. The largest item, of course, was our Planning and Building Services End of Year 2017 report. I have Barbara Barker, our permit technician, here with me tonight. However, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go through and we'll highlight a few things and then ask if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Basically, overall counts, we're still going crazy. The commercial and the total permits basically issued for 2017 was 571, which was only slightly behind 2016. We do have multiple permits that are carrying over into 2018. For example, the campground did not finalize permitting in 17, and there's other projects as well that did not get issued in 17, so we have a lot of carryover. Single family and commercial did increase in 2017. Multifamily and specialty housing decreased. Housing construction by location and type, everybody kind of likes to know where the growth is. And basically, what we're looking at is the slight majority, just slight, of single-family growth was in projects south of I-90 at 53%, which is predominantly Stonehill, Rocky Hill, and Legacy Ridge. And then with the River District at 47%, and the River District is the one in the dark blue, so you can see it's almost equally split. The specialty housing, or the senior projects, it's of course dominated by Stonehill, which is in, on here it shows it as yellow, on mine it's orange, and the other half is split between Trutina and Guardian Angels. Boy, our colors aren't coming up great tonight. Stonehill and Legacy Village are still the only multifamily projects, which really you can't see anything, but there's a big huge circle here that's all Legacy Villas. And there's still a lot more Legacy Villas to go through the permitting. It isn't all completed yet. So you'll see construction continuing out there throughout 2018. So I'm going to go ahead and let Barbara do our district comparisons, our next slide real quick.
So again, the colors didn't come out, but
You may add that for AB.
you should have seen that.
Equipment.
I promise you all saw the originals.
Yeah.
I saw it. I saw it.
So what we've done is we're basically tracking some 5 districts throughout the city. The idea being you're actually going to be able to see the activity in each one of these districts. So you can see in the blue that the River District is a -48. So this is comparing 2016 to 2017. So the River District dropped off, the Apple District went up, Applewood District went up by 37%, Legacy went up by 375%, so obviously a lot of growth in Legacy, and then Meadowood went up by 33%.
So our valuations are still coming in great. We were only slightly behind 17, and honestly it's because of the carryovers. So 18 is still going to continue that growth, and then the valuation is still split between residential and commercial projects. So in 17, new single-family residential was leading. However, in 2016 led in new commercial valuation. And some of that is because we had a lot of growth in the McKinsey area. Again, that will carry over into 2018.
Yeah, that was that slide. You can see the growth in the valuation. The blue is the 2016, the red is the 2017. So you can see where the growth and the drop-offs are.
And then we'll go ahead and probably skip over this because we can't see it super well, but we'll go into the district comparisons.
So what we did here is we basically took the total valuation in each one of these districts and then divided it by the number of units. So while you see that Appleway is at 202, just keep in mind this is per unit, not per square footage. So I don't want to give the impression that property is less expensive than Appleway. It's just the square footage is much smaller. Obviously, Legacy has higher square footages, so you get higher values per unit. So
looking at total permit fees paid, almost $1.2 million of total permit fees paid, included, of course, all our building permit, site plan reviews, commercial plan check, Harvard Road, everything in there. On the planning side, the zoning and subdivision portion of the revenue, which as you can see this, the land use portion 52%, the building at 48%. So it's basically split between land use and building permit reviews, and permitting revenue remains strong and will continue into 2018. So continuing on the planning side, planning fees have continued to exceed expectations. In 2017, we budgeted $25,000, and we had a revenue of over $33,000 for just land use activities, over $62,000 when you included our portion of the building permit review. And then 2018 is expected to beat 17, since we're already at over 75% of our budgeted revenue on the planning side. If I look tired, there's a reason. The largest portion of planning activity is land use permits and reviews, which are of course home occupations. That's a big chunk of it. And then commercial permits, seeker review, temporary use permits for events, etc. Followed by land divisions and pre-apps. We've already had a few pre-apps start, and we'll be continuing those. And again, the planning activity trends are continuing to climb.
On this one again, we're just comparing 2016 and 2017. So while one of the previous slides talked about the building permits dropping off, so you can see that in the first two columns, you can see overall we had an increase of 50% in total permits last year. For the largest, as Amanda's already pointed out, the largest in the land use, almost doubled. And then lots more ROWs and more signs and more fire. So the other thing we did this year, again, numbers are numbers until you put them in context, right? So we reached out to other jurisdictions around the state, and you can see those listed out. There's River Lake in the middle. So just to give you an overall, how many permits are we doing based on our population? You can see we're actually on the high end, so that tells us that we are an active jurisdiction. The next one underneath that is construction value per population again and again. We actually get pretty good value for construction in this area. Total commercial construction, and this is in dollar value, so we're actually low overall for commercial, and I think we all know we're really not a commercial environment. Number of single homes, and this again, this is not per capita, these are gross numbers. So we look low there, particularly compared to Post Falls and Spokane, but if you put that per capita, which I think is on the next one, we're actually right there in the hunt in terms of per capita. So per capita, we're looking very good against Post Falls, and actually higher than Spokane County and Spokane. And that was it. And you can see here on the bottom too, average value for single homes. You know, we're not the highest, but we're also not the lowest, so I'd say that we're right. I think we ought to be for our community. So.
I just want to give good kudos to my team again, because they're working their butts off to try and keep up with this stuff. So.
This is great data.
It's great.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Are there any questions on the report?
Good job.
Okay.
Next
one.
Just real quick, not necessarily on the report, but I know mortgage rates have been kind of ticking up, so that hasn't affected what you've been seeing yet for permitting.
So far, no, and based on talking with builders, they don't expect anything to change over the next year.
So when you look at the land use, it's going to be busy summer.
Thank you for all the information.
Next thing we will cover is our signage purpose statement. So as you know, there's been some changes in the Supreme Court decisions concerning temporary signage, and so as part of the annual amendments this year, we'll be looking at proposing some modifications to our signage standards specifically for temporary signage. Well, as part of that update process there, I talked with Greg, and we agreed that revisiting the purpose statement, making sure that it's still applicable to what we want to see out of our signage standards in general, would be a good thing to do. And I ran the Planning Commission through this exercise last week as well. And so basically, I believe these were included in your packets. But if you want to, just go ahead and read through real quick, and then let me know if you see anything that's glaringly not consistent anymore.
I know the one thing came up in your meeting that your folks talked quite a bit about is that how the political signs come into play as restaurant signs, things of the sort here. I think it's important if you can touch on that again, how everything is the same.
So Mike's correct, he attended the Planning Commission meeting. They had a little difficulty in looking at the purpose statement because everything is really focused on aesthetics in the purpose statement, so how does that play in with the temporary? Well, the one thing we have to remember now is a temporary is a temporary when it comes to it's either off-site or on-site predominantly. And this, you'll see this drafted forward, so we can no longer look at a temporary event sign a temporary political sign, etc. If it's in that same temporary category, they all have to be looked at the same. And so if you like the community event signs, well, you better like the politicals too. And so Greg and I were going to bring forward some options to look at, but you do have to consider them all the same. Commercial right now, you can consider separately. We're still watching case law and stuff though. Some jurisdictions have kind of predicted that they're going to end up all being the same, so some have already gone in that direction, but right now we're still looking at commercial separately. And so basically it comes down to temporary on-premise or temporary off-premise is kind of how we're looking at it. But to be determined on, we'll come back with more on that, but that's what Mike's referring to, is everything has to be looked at the same.
So basically what you're saying is we may need to start allowing political signage back in the rights of way?
It depends on what you want to see. So based on this purpose statement, and Planning Commission agreed, we don't want to see a lot of cluttered streetscapes. And so they were supportive of maintaining what we have, possibly if we could make separate purpose for temporary. I'm going to talk to Greg about that. But if we're basing it on this purpose statement, then that would drive us towards the less clutter and therefore designating either very limited areas for temporary signage of any type, you know, event or otherwise, or not allowing them. And so that's something we're still looking at to see. But you have to remember community events are in there too. So.
But it is something we do have some flexibility.
We do have some, as long as they're treated the same. Right. Some jurisdictions decided to go, they wanted them all in the intersections. I think that's a little crazy on some extents. Others said, no, we'd rather have them back from the intersections. Others decided not to limit them at all, that they were more consistent with how we are. Yeah.
What is the statute change that precipitated this change?
So basically, there was a Supreme Court decision about 2 years ago, I believe it was. Help me out here, Sean, if I misquote the dates. That I don't have the case written down right in front of me, but it basically said there was a challenge that came forward on a code enforcement standpoint for a church, I believe is what it was, and they were looking at how the signs were posted, and they were having to read them in order to determine what category they fit in. Just like ours, unless somebody circled the category, we had to look at to see what it fit into. You can't do that anymore. You cannot have to read a sign to determine how it's classified. That's what prompted the case and everybody looking at it and major signing revamps.
It's a speech issue, and that your way a lot of codes had read were, whether it's temporary, political, what have you, and you made communities made decisions based upon that type of sign. Well, the only way that you can decide between that type of sign is you have to read the sign. And the problem is, by reading the sign, you then get into a speech issue. And so, in essence, the short version of the case was you have to be uniform in whatever sign it is relative to the sign, no matter what's on the sign. And so that's the issue that's come up into play.
And so I attended trainings last fall about what other jurisdictions have done, but basically you can't just take somebody else's box and jump into their box. It doesn't work that way, and so that's why we wanted to come back and revisit the purpose statement and make sure we're going in the right direction. So. Are there any other comments, or you still agree with the way we have it worded?
Well, I agree with the purpose statement, but I'm concerned with the impact it's going to have on the aesthetics of the community. And I don't know how the Planning Commission views that, but I view the aesthetics and character of our community as a very strong and primary issues. And I don't know how much flexibility we have in conjunction with the Supreme Court ruling, and what flexibility we have in determining what our approach is going to be to addressing the issue.
So basically focus still on our aesthetics and try and keep as core focus on our aesthetics and character as we have.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the primary thing about the political signs, as an example, was keeping them out of the right-of-way. Because when you're in the right-of-way, it's not only an aesthetics issue, I think it's a safety issue also. When we have signs in the right-of-way, whether they be political or otherwise. But I think the community has spoken that they're very concerned about the aesthetics of the community, and that should be a very high priority.
when Safeway opened up,
You saw the free-for-all original.
yeah, I mean, everybody and their dog knew what was going on there because of all the signs they had everywhere. How is that, was it addressed?
Yes. So those were kind of a surprise, and Dennis got on them pretty quick. If you notice, they got reduced greatly. And then we ended up having, I think, some pennants or something put back up, but they were pretty close to their end, so it was a timing issue. Basically, they applied for the whole 30 days once we brought them into compliance. They had the flag at each side, one. And the pennants, I can't remember where we left off on there, but originally they did have way too much, and yes, we received complaints and we got on it right away.
Because it was up for quite a while.
Yeah, they were allowed up to 30 days, and so I think they're down now, if I remember seeing her, they're real close to their end of their deadline.
But the exaggerated signs were even up for quite a while. And I think that the challenge comes into place for us, because we're out and about in the community, is business owners, especially smaller business owners, say, well, wait a minute, why in the heck is this being allowed? And then we're not allowed to put up a sandwich board.
Yeah. As soon as we saw what was going on, I think they might have put them up on a Friday or something, and as soon as we got back in the office, realized what was going on out there, Dennis was on it right away. And so I believe within 24 to 48 hours, we had it within compliance.
I think it's good for us, a learning point for us for the future, when we know there's going to be a grand opening, to be proactive and say, okay, make sure you guys are following X, Y, and Z, because it's only a fair approach for other businesses, because when they see that, they start pointing fingers at us and looking at us and saying, what in the heck is going on here?
And we actually have a fairly new little brochure that's called Business Signage Standards Summary. It's just a little front and back brochure, and so we can hand that out to new businesses to just get them started so they don't have to dive into the sign code.
Just kind of a general comment in observing the applications that come in, and I think both Amanda and Jen have lived through this, and it's when it's the fireworks, or it's going to be a concert at Pavilion Park, or there's a band playing, or the book sale, is treating everyone the same. And that's the challenge, because when we communicate with our public, whether it's a message board, Facebook, our website, Notify Me, putting out those sandwich boards, people are kind of used to them around town, and if we can't do that anymore because of we have to treat all temporary signs the same, I don't have a good answer. I'm just observing the problem. But that's a challenge, is that our community, a lot of our nonprofits and event organizers are used to these sandwich boards around town. And if we're not able to do that anymore, I think it's going to be a challenge for us. But
And I think it's something that we need to look at for the local business aspect too. Because it's, I know that I've heard from business owners, and others have as well, but the challenges that they face in reaching out to people. And so when we see, and I'm glad it was addressed, but let's just make sure we're being consistent across the board.
I have one question not related to this, if you can take the time to answer it.
Okay.
I'd like to draw your attention to Rocky Hill and the apparent new streets being cut in at the rear on the northernmost part of those, of what's existing. Has that plat already been submitted?
So I believe you have the civils on, or they're just starting to do the grubbing and stuff. I don't think you have the civils yet, do you? Okay. No, we have not gotten the final plat application in. I believe that'll be Rocky Hill North 4th, I think is what that'll be. We have discussed with them, but I think they're starting the grubbing, which if you're seeing the activity out there, that means Andrew's going to be seeing the civils here very soon. So I heard that we were going to be coming in with probably 2 more additions, 4th and 5th. So no, we don't officially have it in yet, but it is part of the Rocky Hill North approved preliminary plat.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. And my last topic here in the quick 10 minutes is tonight you have the first read on the ordinance for the Planning Commission bylaws update. And I have just a little one-page thing here that will show you. Basically, it was asked, some of the questions that came out were from council when we discussed were possibility of term limits, to look at conflict of interest provisions, and then to look at the qualifications again. And so Planning Commission went through and looked at those and discussed those as well as priorities for applications and stuff. And basically what you see proposed for modification came out of Planning Commission is what their recommendation is. And they focused on the advertisement and then the applicant review and interview. In their opinion, they didn't believe the term limits were necessary. There isn't term limits on council. And as long as we're following kind of the advertisement and application review, we have the chance to rotate things up right there. On conflict of interest provisions, those actually are addressed a little further down. We talk about, I believe it's further down, but on the next page, you don't have to advance it. We talk about qualifications and who's interested, and then conflicts of interest in particular. And so it's really self-disciplined. And so far we haven't had too much of an issue in 16 years with it. If I saw an issue arising, I kind of took the person aside and talked to him a little bit, but it hasn't been a current issue. And then the last, again, are the qualifications, and those are in the bylaws, and a construction background is beneficial. And so that was something else Planning Commission looked at. But basically, this is what they're proposing for modification to address some of the concerns.
So a question concerning that. I think it's great that we're going to be doing the advertising, and I think that's one of the things that we wanted to have done. I guess from my perspective, one of the concerns I have is that everybody in City Hall interviews the applicants. Yet the applicants come to City Council to be confirmed, and we don't know anything about them. Okay, the only thing we know is that the mayor is going to appoint them, and we don't know what their background, experience, qualifications, or anything is. We're just asked to go ahead and confirm them because the mayor recommended it. Recommended for appointment. And I'd like to figure out some way that we can get more information about the applicants so that when we confirm an applicant, we know that they're a qualified and capable individual.
Well, don't we usually receive the copy of the application?
I believe, yes. This actually formalizes, right now we don't have an interview process or anything. In previous administrations we have occasionally interviewed and stuff, and I believe Councilmember Moore actually was one of the planning commissioners that was interviewed, if I remember right. And so we're kind of proposing to go back to that process. But no, I didn't include anything other than when it goes to council, we can put whatever the nomination is in the application forward.
Question? I know a few years ago there was a concern that was brought up, somewhat minor, that it was felt we shouldn't really have two individuals on the planning commission who do not reside within the city. That has not come up again, so I assume that's not an issue.
So it still allows for up to 2 members to be outside the city. We currently only have 1 member, it's our chair that's outside the city. However, we've had enough applicants from within the city lately that we've been selecting from within the city. Adjuncts in particular cannot be outside the city, and so we've been backfilling a lot through the adjunct and then in. And so I think right now, like I said, we only have the 1 member that's outside. And so we've been advertising. Help me out here, Ann. Have we advertised for city residents only lately, since we had 1 person?
Not the last.
Not the last one, okay.
But
I know at one time we had advertised for city only because we needed adjuncts filled.
But apparently with your committee, it hasn't come up where they feel it's a concern.
Not again, no, we haven't discussed it yet.
I think to Bob's point, when you have the planning commission resumes in front of you, that's one piece of the pie. How somebody presents themselves and is able to communicate their experience and their background and why they want to do it is a whole other thing. I've seen people that have horrible resumes, but they are great presenters of what they bring to the table, and vice versa. So I would like to see us have the opportunity to hear more from them, to see why they want to do it and what their background is. That's just my personal thought.
So this comes up for first read tonight. Do we want to, basically I'm looking for direction. Do you want me to modify the proposed bylaws prior to second read? Do we want to hold off on first read?
No, I'd like to get some input on what I brought up from the others to see what their thoughts are.
I'm very comfortable with that because I know statistically in the city of Spokane, and it certainly has happened in Liberty Lake also, it's not uncommon that individuals from planning commission, percentage-wise, eventually decide to run for council or they get themselves appointed to council. So I think the more information we can have on individuals who are applying for those applications, it's better for us down the road on appointments and also individuals who choose to run.
I'm just talking strictly in regards to what they're running for at that time.
So I have an idea. I'll run by you guys. And Amanda, this isn't time sensitive that we have to have the first read tonight. I don't believe. But why don't, because it sounds like what I'm hearing is the way that our ordinance reads is the mayor appoints and the council confirms. But what Amanda and I can do is maybe some research on what other communities do so that when the applicants come in, you have their application, but also is there an opportunity so that they can introduce themselves. This is who I am, this is how long I've lived here, and just have an opportunity to give you a little bit about their background and why they want to do it.
Because I think it just gives us a better opportunity and gives us that, comfort of that confirmation of that position.
And I don't think it needs to be anything formal,
No,
but
it
if it's
doesn't
a
have to be
simple,
a 3-minute,
Very simple.
A simple introduction.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, so at the night of the appointment, they would need to be here, they'd need to introduce themselves and speak to their interest of why they want to be on the planning commission.
Absolutely.
I think that's...
So do you want us to research, or do we want to go ahead and just add that in to here to have
I
this?
think it'd be great to hear what
I would like to add it in.
communities do.
That's just my 2 cents.
Is that something we could...
Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, is that, Sean, is that something with this kind of an amendment? Would we want to kind of craft something on the fly, or is it something we should bring back? I don't think it's...
The answer is no. I'd rather take a look at it.
Yeah.
And see language.
Yeah, I'm fine with taking a look at it, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're doing it the right way.
I've always regretted drafting ordinances.
Yeah, I want to do it the right way, obviously.
Well, since we're having our committee meetings, like we're having right now, would it be appropriate to have those people come to the committee meeting and introduce themselves to the city council?
Either way.
Excellent idea.
I would ask the question, if we're going to ask them to come from that committee, do we also include them that they're coming from the Parks and Arts Committee? What's the difference?
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not.
I would think if we're going to do it for one, we do it for all.
Yeah, we want to be consistent.
That's true.
And it's just giving us that much more comfort and transparency about who's going to be filling that spot.
I like that suggestion, Bob, because it allows us to be a little more informal, just to be more of a chat instead of tell us what you know and hit the road, okay? And it also gives us the opportunity to talk with the person, see where they're coming from, and then have a period before the meeting to be confirmed.
Yeah.
So if they meet with us tonight for the first time, they wouldn't be on tonight's council meeting for confirmation. They'd be on the following. And that would give us some time to chew it over and make some decisions. And I think it's just a great atmosphere to get that done.
That's very good.
If I may interject, is this something that you would want to have an ordinance versus just a policy of having them come to a committee meeting? And the reason why I say that is once you put something in an ordinance, it becomes a law, which is different than just to have an opportunity for potential commissioners to come speak. And then the other issue is now we're intermixing an ordinance with the city council rules of procedures relative to those committee meetings. So my suggestion would be that the council and the staff and mayor just take a policy decision and let's have them come to one of the committee meetings and speak to the council as opposed to making a change.
And I was looking at it more as policy
Thank you.
versus
Let's keep it simple.
I think the bylaws are established by ordinance, are they not?
correct.
Yeah.
Very good.
So I'm hearing we keep the language the same, but we're going to do an internal policy of having them come introduce themselves at a committee workshop and then nominate at a subsequent meeting or confer nominations.
So Jen just asked, should we include our student commissioners in this?
I would like to hear from them. I mean, I don't think it's going to negate what they're doing by any means, but I'd love to hear from them. I'd love to know them.
It gives the kids great exposure.
And it gives us, it honestly gives us a better connection to the people that we're working with. And I think at the end of the day, that's always a bonus.
So just to wrap up then, what I understand is we know, I think, what the intent is and what the changes are going to be, but we're not going to include it in the ordinance. We're going to use it as part of our policy, and that policy would come back to the council, but the ordinance will move forward tonight.
Very good.
And I know we're running out of time. Just one quick additional question on the advertising. It just says as needed. Is there been any discussion on how far in advance of term expirations? Because it just says
I was going to put that in specifically, but I was a little nervous about being that. I can tell you on mine, I have it listed as late summer, early fall to advertise. But I was a little nervous on locking us down that tight, so.
As long as it's been considered and it's on your radar.
Can I have a minute also? Two quick things I realize we're running out of time. One, I'd like to say is that I really appreciate the format we're working on now. This is our second meeting we had of this. I think it's great to be able to have you folks here to give us this information. You know, I think it's outstanding. I'm looking forward to moving ahead with this. The other thing is that I really want to compliment the staff and everything that you guys do. And the reason being is that, you know, it's one thing to run for city council, and you become very visible. Your signs are out, people know you're running, they get to know your face and stuff. And what happens is, and I'll use myself for example, people will come to me and say, I think, God, I love the way you're taking care of the roads. The snow that was taken care of. I was out getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and somebody said, hey, thanks for getting the roads cleaned out. That is really great. The thing I love to be able to do as a council member is this. I'm able to say, I had nothing to do with that. But what I'd like you to do is when you see the guys that are out there doing that work, thank them. What you need to do is just don't tell somebody else. It would be great if you could drop a note to say, thanks to the staff, thanks to RJ, thanks to Amanda, thanks to Katie, and I appreciate what you're doing. We tend to get the recognition because of the ribbon cutting and stuff. We're there, but really who makes the city do what it is doing is you guys right there. I don't think you get enough credit, and I, for one, try to give you credit every single time because you make me look good and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, are you finished? Can I have a couple minutes of your time?
Sure.
Okay. Could you please explain under the ordinance section, not ordinances, I'm sorry, the general business items, where it states that there's a proven owner's construction contingency of 5%.
Okay,
Are we the owners?
We are.
The city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are the owners.
That's
All
us.
right. That's us. Okay, so what we're going to do is just request cost plus contingency then.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And we have a 5% contingency on
Okay.
the one item and then a 10% on the other.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out who.
We are
owners
the owner.
Okay. And the second thing, I don't know that we really have time, so we'll forego it, but thank you anyway.
All right, 10-minute break.
Okay. Thank you all.
God our Father, I thank you for the blessings you provide us each and every day. As we go through struggles in this country with shooting situations and the different political issues, I ask that you give us guidance and show us what path we need to go on. Not only for our state, but our country. I ask that you watch over our police, firefighters, military, that they are safe while they're protecting us. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You okay? Go it out.
All right.
If you don't need that, just
So call to order. We have who's not here.
Mayor, I move to excuse receivers.
second.
Moving second to further discussion. Not hearing all favors say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's before you.
Mayor, I move the agenda before you.
Second.
Moving second to further discussion. Not hearing all favors say aye.
Aye.
There you go. Citizen comments. I'll rush to the stage at any one time. Hold back.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a recommendation or suggestion? In the past, we've gotten into the habit of asking individuals to come forward to the podium, but also stick to 3 minutes. If we can do that, I think as time goes on, we get our video working and things of the sort here. The audience who are viewing this would not be able to hear from the individual speaking in the audience if they don't come to the podium. But also, I think it just gives the works well for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Council.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Not hearing any, our first presentation is Mike Gribner from Eastern Regional District Director. Question. And Mike, come over to the podium. Rick and I sit next to each other at SRTC, so.
Thank you. Hey, Mayor, thank you. Council, thanks for having me. I think the conversation tonight, I hope, is really an update. As many of you know, the Henry Road project has been around for discussion for some time now. There's been recently some fairly significant changes in that project, and I think I'd like to take just a minute and explain them to you and share with you sort of how we think this is going to unfold, or is unfolding as we speak. So as you remember, and if you have questions about this, we should raise these questions before we move on, but as you remember, what was being asked for a project was a connection, a new Henry Road and a connection to Interstate 90. That project unfortunately had some fatal issues in it in the near term. And one of the primary concerns that DOT had was, and quite frankly our responsibility to the feds, is the traffic modeling did not warrant a connection yet. And so that's a problem for us in the stewardship role. When we built I went through the process of doing the interchange justification report, which is the process we go through to validate whether the connection is something we want to pursue. There just wasn't, we're too early in the process to make a good argument that that connection was actually warranted. I think it will come. You guys are growing like crazy out here. I think someplace in the future we're going to need to put that connection in. But in the near term, as far as we can see in the next few years, that's not likely something we can sell. So that left us with a discussion that started here recently between DOT and Mayor Peterson and Katie. What are we going to do with that? We have $26 million sitting in connecting Washington in the out years. Not really a project that we're going to build. If we're not careful, that money is going to get lifted out of this region and sent somewhere else to another priority. And so that started a pretty significant conversation amongst us. I don't think any of us wanted to lose the money. There's several things out here in Liberty Lake that need to be done. And so we started to take a look at the project in terms of how could we take what was originally a connection to I-90 and facilitate things in the valley, Liberty Lake and nearby Liberty Lake, that might actually be good for business, might be good for safety, might be good for the system. And so what I want to share with you, I think, is what came out of that conversation. Before I go there, I want to thank Katie and the mayor both. I think this was a challenging and difficult conversation for all of us. There was a lot of ownership in the project. The changes, I think, are really healthy changes. I think you'll like them. And I don't think there's anything lost in the future. One of the things that I keep telling the mayor is that at some point, we're going to make sure that we can come back and look at this again. So when we design these projects, we're going to make sure we have capacity in them. If we need to make a connection later, if we need to build a frontage road, or we're going to plan. So with that, is there any questions on where we were? Katie, Mayor, anything you want to add before we move on?
Mike, I'll just add something really quick, and I want to recognize Mike Frushi as well. So we're partners with DOT on many things, and I just want to say both of these guys have been with the organization, I don't know, at least 30 years? 35 years, and it's just been a joy to work with both Mike Frushi and Mike Gribner to come up with a solution. I know the mayor's heading to Olympia tomorrow, and I won't steal his thunder if he's going to talk about that. There's still a lot up in the air about this, but our goal tonight was for Mike to share with you the project, the scope of the project, but he's also going to talk to you about the funding and some of the challenges that are real challenges.
So what you have up here in front of you, if you can see that, so this is Henry Road, and what was originally...
Mike, can you speak into the microphone so the audience can, or you can pull it out if you want, I think.
So what was originally proposed here was interchange.
No, it was on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
So there are several actually what we would consider safety or operational issues out here. And so when we decided that maybe it wasn't the right time to make the connection, that freed up a lot of capital. So the question is, do we want to let that capital disappear somewhere, or do we want to put it to work for us? And so that question really led us to come back and look at some of the operational things we know exist out here. You folks who live out here, how does it feel to get on the westbound on-ramp, where you have the two on-ramps? How do you guys feel about that?
I don't.
Dangerous. Dangerous. Yeah. So we agree. I think from DOT's perspective, that would be one of the first things that we would consider a priority out here, just from a safety standpoint. It's operationally awkward. It's dangerous. We've had some bad accidents there. So one of the advantages of being able to rethink your project is we can move money into these new priorities. And so one of the first things we talked about with the mayor was this: should we take the money and build an extra width on Harvard Bridge, which is a congestion point, and fix this westbound merge so it's a much safer access to the freeway? Okay, so we'll go look at that. We'll price that and see if that's something that we might want to think about doing. The one thing that's been very clear in the conversations I've had with the fire department and the other folks out here is, and the school, is there is a need for circulation. Whether or not we connect or not, circulation is a critical element to the growth of Liberty Lake. I hear that fairly often. So we left the connection out, but we thought, well, the circulation probably does matter. Let's price a crossing. Let's scale it down a little bit because we don't have freeway connections. And then the other thing we took a look at is this operational issue right here at the northbound intersection of Barker, which is one of the places, as you probably know living out here, that backs up at certain times of the day because the intersection is the operational bottleneck. And so you get traffic backing out onto the freeway, or at least down the ramp away, it's creating accidents. So the short story is we took a look at all those things and said, if we could build that package for roughly the same price that we had in the interchange, would that be a good benefit for the area out here? So the first thing we realized is that we could afford to do that. If we could keep the money, we could afford to do all that. The second thing, in talking to the mayor and others, is actually there was a lot of interest in doing that. I think one of the mayor's top priorities when we came to the realization we might not be able to do the connection was to actually fix this safety issue here. I think that's still probably your top priority. So now we have potentially a new project. We've agreed locally how to change the project. So DOT likes this. I think the city likes this. The local legislators we were dealing with, Matt Shea and Senator Patton, I think liked this. So now the question was how to change it, because this was actually a fixed line item appropriation in Connecting Washington. And if you're familiar with how the legislation works in Connecting Washington, it is very rigid. It's not something DOT can change easily. It basically takes some kind of legislative act to change it. But there was one thing already going on that we knew, and we decided to try and play off that to make a change in this project and actually to accelerate the expenditures. We knew that statewide there's a little bit of a bow wave building in the expenditure plan for Connecting Washington. And what I mean by that is the spending plan was not spending as fast as expectations were at the time the legislation was put together. There was money laying on the table. DOT was trying to figure out how to deal with that. We knew that there was this money laying on the table, that we were underspending the Connecting Washington plan. And there was already a proposal being fleshed out that was going to be presented to the legislature that said, give us some flexibility to advance some projects into this biennial window that we're not spending fast enough. So what DOT did is, well, two things happened. First of all, we went through the process of renaming the project. So we renamed it and rescoped it. And then we slid it into that legislation and put it in front of the legislators, hoping that they would allow us to create the flexibility to advance the money. So we changed the scope, but the other goal was to actually bring it forward and start the projects now. It was a good plan. There was one surprise in it, though. And we just found out about that this weekend. And that is when we submitted, so we got the scope changed. That was, the ledge staff didn't have any issue with that. But when it came down to actually making the adjustment, we found out this weekend that ledge staff had made a decision that you had to be in the 1921 biennium with money to be advanced. This project doesn't have any money in the current legislation in that biennium. So essentially we were out. There was a lot of conversation went on this weekend between the mayor and myself, Senator Patton, and others about how can we make a change to that. As I understand it right now, ledge staff has not relented on that, and that is still a concern. But Senator Patton has been working behind the scenes to create some money in this biennium. My understanding is he has about $500,000 set up for the PD phase for this. What the mayor and I have been talking about is, and I'll show you some numbers here in a second, but what the mayor and I have been talking about is that enough to leverage the start of something bigger? And so we've been talking about having other money to the table to sort of coordinate a start. I think all of this is still up in the air. The mayor's leaving town 5 a.m. to go over and talk to folks. So let me walk you through these real quick. I kind of gave you the highlight, but let me walk you through just real quick and show you what we're doing. So we have 3.9 million of the original 26 million set up for a roundabout at the north leg of the Barker interchange. And just so you know, we already have funding for the roundabouts at the two intersections of the south leg. So this will complete the interchange modifications at Barker. We believe from modeling this that this will actually relieve some of the congestion problem there because the intersections will operate more efficiently during peak. So we'll get less backing up. Again, I mentioned that we want to leave the Henry Road crossing in. That's $14 million of the original $26 million. This creates a circulation necessary for the school, for Grove, for the fire department. And then of course, this is the big safety project. These two pieces add up to $8.5 million, which is fixing the westbound on and then the crossing. So that's how the money divides up, just so you have a sense of that. And at that point, with that, I guess I'm going to open this up to some questions and see if Mayor or Katie wants to add anything to that. I mean, that's kind of the status. We're sort of right in the middle of the fight right now.
I think, first of all, this thing has been here a decade, basically go back to 2006. And then there's been a lot of pushback from the legislature on DOT and liver projects and all this kind of stuff. So Mike, you took over what, 6 months, 8 months ago, or
about a little over a year
ago, and Mike took over from Keith Metcalf. Keith went on to be the deputy director of Washington over in Columbia. But Mike really provided the leadership within DOT to start trying to move this back into the system and moving it forward and looking for opportunities. And I think that's where we're at today. The second thing is that when over the last, connecting Washington was an issue with the legislature, pretty much of trust, I think, and we grant that. And with that said, we were able to, 12 years ago, start the lift over there as a demonstration project. This project here when we're talking to these, to our legislators and to the crew up there, is that this is going to be a demonstration project of how projects should be done with DOT and local communities to advance, good quality transportation, capture value in what you're putting on the ground, and not just planning on it and not having any tooth behind it. So that's kind of the plan as we go forward, at least this legislative session. It's been there 4 times, so we've won 4 times. This is the 4th time. So we're not hindered by taking it back. But Mike has really provided the horsepower and the leadership. And we had the secretary here in the fall, a whole cadre of people, and then partnerships with all of our organizations. Chief Collins and Ben Small is going with me tomorrow on the plane. And so, I mean, there's a whole team of people that are trying to push this thing forward. But I got to give it to Mike because it's been, since 2001 when we started working on like the pedestrian bridge, he has really been the glue that helped move this thing forward. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything you want to add to that, Kate?
Well, just, so I know we're kind of in that home stretch. I think you know the legislative cycle better than I do, or our council. So is that kind of a 2-week exercise, and then we'll know more in about 2 weeks? Is that, or is it longer?
Hard to say,
Okay.
but it won't be long.
Okay.
I think this is going to wrap up pretty quickly. I've learned over the years not to pick the end date for the legislation.
Right.
But I would guess that this is something, and I think this is a good reason for the mayor to be on the plane tomorrow. I think this is coming to a head pretty rapidly. So yeah, I think a couple of weeks is a fair estimate.
Okay. So a couple weeks, then we'll know more, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to get together after we know more and come up with.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I didn't talk about is, depending on what all comes out of this, but when we get the money, then we have to deliver this. One of the objectives we have to be very clear about amongst DOT and the city of Liberty Lake is there's been a lot of capital expended to get this money advanced. A lot of political capital, a lot of human capital, and we can't fall down on this. We need to deliver.
So let me ask you a question. Is converting an existing structure for a new use the same as a new project as far as the money is planned?
Yes, in this case it would be very similar to that. And this is actually, I think the plan is a new bridge, is that right? At Harvard? Yeah. Yeah, so it'll actually be a new structure. But it would be treated as a new project. It's not preservation, it's not maintaining the system. This is adding capacity to Harvard. So it's going to be in the bucket just like adding a lane to the freeway. It's going to be that type of a project.
Thank you.
Question, Mike. So it kind of sounds like we're at the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Here. And I appreciate all the effort, so please get to this point and where we're going from there. But the question I would have is this. If and when we get the money, when would the shovel go in the ground to start something?
Well, that's part of the conversation that's going on, because if and I don't know that I brought the cash flow with me, but the way the project currently is in connecting Washington, it is way out there, 10 years or so out. What we're hearing, we'll see how the mayor does tomorrow, but what we're hearing is about $500,000 of design money might be advanced into this biennium. Those projects that I showed you, every single one of them cut into a piece takes more than $500,000 to design. So really, in the scenario we're at right now, DOT would need some help. We would need a partnership to actually even finish one of the designs. We would not probably have enough. And so I don't see a scenario at this point where we're talking about pushing the whole project forward. And then the other part of this is if we have advanced just the design money, and that's the only part of the legislation, we haven't dealt with the rest of the cash flow. So the construction money is still 10 years out there. So this is the start of more political conversations and more change in the project. I think it's a good start. I mean, being able to get the design done and having it ready having a project ready is gonna up the pressure to actually fund it. But there's several more conversations coming, at least one more legislative.
I would assume that if the city was in a position to participate in the funding of this, that get favored over them spending it somewhere else.
Absolutely. Partnerships or, I mean, that is the way to get things done now.
And all three project elements, I call them three, there's the Harvard, the Henry, and the Barker.
Right.
Harvard could be considered two projects, but they don't all have to advance as a package,
right.
Correct? We could decide to advance them individually as a region.
So,
which would be great.
And I almost hate to say this, but it will. It's in some ways of thinking about this, coming up a little bit short and having a significant partnership conversation with the city might actually be a catalyst to the project. I think the mayor's thinking that a little bit too. I definitely see that as an opportunity, because what we would be coming back to the legislature with is this, this partnership, which is going to look really good to them. I agree. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
So, good segue into the question I was going to ask, and I wasn't quite sure if I should ask you, RJ, or Katie, or all three of you. We've got this lift and TIF money out there, and when it's getting upwards of how many millions now?
It's somewhere like in the $9 to $10 million range in the bank.
So is there something we can do to leverage that with future reimbursement to maybe get some of this stuff going?
So the trick on the lift, the way it's written right now, is you've got to front the cash to get reimbursed by the lift. So it's not something you can get money out of the lift.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you could reimburse yourself, but you couldn't use it as seed money.
But you need a cash flow from somewhere else. So we'd have to front it to get the money back. So, plus, there's other projects in that resolution that you want to.
Yeah, those are worth asking.
So, Mike, how long is a plan good for? If you get the plan and you want to put it together and you fund it, how long is that plan good for? Does it have a shelf life?
It does. I'm not sure I can give you a direct answer because some of it, we would have to look at the project even within a year. We would have to look at it and see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. Environmental laws may have changed, things like that. So I think anytime it goes on the shelf for a while, there's at least some time and some cost to pull it down and look at it. But again, I think in this climate, and discussing this with the mayor, I think that is the right play here. I think having a shelf-ready project will put pressure on the rest of the advancing of the money. I think if we don't do that, then it's the hurry to advance the funds.
Has this conversation been had with the Valley?
Say that again.
Has this conversation been held with the Valley concerning Barker?
Yes. I've talked to the City of the Valley extensively about this. They're in as a partner. They got something out of this. They're appreciative of that. I think they're willing to take it whenever we can figure it out. If we prioritize something else first, they're okay with that.
Thank you.
Mike, are we in competition with the Valley for this funding?
No.
There's actually 4 projects here.
I would say no. I think that's the wrong way to think about this.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a tricky question because what we're trying to do is create a collaboration. There's always competition for funding. Priorities are always tossed around when there's never enough money to fund all the priorities. But I think the way we are looking at this, and I'll let the mayor speak to this in a second, but when I approached the City of the Valley, it's can you partner with us? And they're doing some stuff on Barker that is also right now legislatively challenging. And so I think there is a feeling, a sense of camaraderie between the two organizations right now. They're both trying to push through stuff out here that helps the Valley. That's my sense.
That's the case. In fact, one of the meetings tomorrow is with the Valley lobbyists over in Olympia. So again, it's all around. I think this connection with the legislature. When Matt Shea was on, he's on the transportation, House Transportation Committee. When he came with the director at that meeting here, you were there in November. I mean, that was a big big deal. And it was also, I think Mayor Higgins was there at the time, right? So I mean, we're all on the same page, same on the same end. And so I think it's just a matter, and again, it's, you know, you take, I think what Mike talked about, we're going to take this step, and we'll be back next year, and we're on first-name basis with most of the people in Olympia to continue to move this thing forward in Paris.
Where I think you want to end up on this conversation is, and this is where we try to go, is you want to be somehow ready to pick money up that doesn't get spent. There's always optimism in a spending plan, always. You know, no one goes into a spending plan assuming they can't spend it, but it always happens. There's things that happen in the project, rules change, you know, things happen. And so that optimism creates that money that lays around in the cash flow. And so that's what we originally were trying to do, is create the opportunity to get that. That went a little bit away with the conversation with the ledge staff, but I think this, you know, this idea that we're ready to go really is setting you guys back up for that conversation. If that's available, the project's ready to go, you know, there will be discussions with the legislature about why letting that money come to this project. I think that's what we're gearing up for in this particular scenario.
Mike, again, thank you much for coming out.
Thank you.
Coming in support, you know, so we appreciate it. Again, we couldn't ask for a better leader down in Eastern Washington District Office, so thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So now we have Phil. Phil, there he is.
Good evening. Phil Champlin with the Hub Sports Center. I'm the executive director out there, and I got the opportunity to share with you a little bit about our 2017 year and some things we have happening here in 2018. So let's see if I can operate technology. There we go. So you all got a note in your packet with a report that I sent to my board of directors about 2017, and it was the best year we've had to date. Some of the highlights, we celebrated 10 years of serving this community as the Hub Sports Center. We were awarded the Heart of the Community Award by Spokane Valley Chamber in January 2017. We set a record for attendance last year, over 180,000 people through there. Economic impact of almost $7 million, and concluded our sixth consecutive year of ending with a positive cash flow. So all things that we were pretty excited about. So part of our resource is connections, and so we really believe that we can do more together than we can on our own. And so to that end, we find strategic partnerships and alliances with other groups that have like-minded ideals. And so most of those are other youth nonprofit organizations, YMCA, AAU, Evergreen Region Volleyball are kind of the big three mainstays. But we enjoy working with other groups to provide opportunities for kids to learn those life lessons through athletics. And so we also have come up with our own program. We partnered with the city last year to run the soccer portion of the Barefoot 3-on-3 for the Barefoot in the Park Days. We've been doing a Dads and Dudes Night for 6 years, a father-son come hang out, play together, make some positive memories, which led to our mother-son Gym Jam we did for the first time this last year. Moms wanted to come play with their boys. But a drop-in shop around Christmas time to go play. We do a pre-K sports day, lots of pickleball. We started an all-star game for young ladies that made their all-league team for volleyball that come out and play in a showcase. And then our marquee outreach program is our Hub 360 after-school program. So we're actually up to 4 sites now. So we work with Central Valley, East Valley, and West Valley school districts. We serve all the middle schools in those districts with the exception of Horizon Middle School. So they come to the Hub, they go to Opportunity Presbyterian Church, Millwood Presbyterian, and then East Valley Middle School. And so they meet twice a week. We see an average, put the student averages up there in terms of number of kids that are coming per week. It's been a great program. We're working on a video right now. So I could talk forever on this program, but average middle school kids, and talking to counselors and administrators, they told us that every kid in middle school is at risk, which made a lot of sense to me. So every middle school is eligible to come to the program, but the counselors and administrators help target and recruit kids to attend. Now, the other thing that we're doing is we're looping back with these kids. We're just starting to get them to be juniors and seniors in high school that have gone through our program. So I go meet with them in the fall, and I offer them a $250 stipend when they graduate from high school. That is predicated that they come back and they volunteer as a peer mentor in the Hub 360 program, so they give back as part of this. And so we've had 2 kids take us up on that so far that have started to come back and be mentors. And I'm actually working with a production company to tell the story of one of the kids, because it's got some powerful elements to it. But love this program and being able to be a resource and a good positive place for the kids. So new for 2018, we've been doing some interesting things. We started a roller derby is going to come in and do roller derby at the Hub. We tested it out last month. They did not destroy my floors, which is important to me. So we're going to do this again in April and May. They brought a team out from Hellgate, Montana to play, and so they stayed and dined and hung out here in the area. The Tiny Whoop drones, so you can see how big those are. So at the Hub, we have an upper mezzanine space. And so we actually started working with them in November. But they're flown with, it's called First Person View, FPV. So on the drone is a little miniature camera. And so the people flying them are actually sitting in the chairs, and they put the goggles on, and they fly through hoops and under tables and over awnings and around inflatable snowmen. And so the last race in their winter series is actually this Friday night at 7 o'clock, if you want to come check it out. Pretty entertaining stuff. Homeschool physical education. So we had a local homeschool mom come ask if we'd be interested in doing a homeschool PE day, and I said yes. It's been something we've been trying to do for a few years, but we just didn't have the inside connection. And so we did the first one in December, had 25 kids. Our second one was in January. We had 40 kids, and then a request to do it every week. We've been doing it once a month. So we expanded to twice a month. The first one we did in February 7th, we had 62 kids, and we capped it at 50 kids for the one tomorrow, knowing that we'll get some people that just show up. But that's been a blast to find that niche and start to serve that community a little bit more. Gathering the Hoops is a native basketball tournament we're going to try and do in June this year. But the two I really want to spend just a little bit of time on is the Police Activity League and Play Unplugged. So the City of Spokane does a Police Activity League. They've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. And they meet 3 days a week at 3 different parks. And so I met with Chief Asmus and Chief Warner in Spokane Valley and asked if this would be something they'd be interested in doing, and they said yes. So the Hub's going to provide the location, and we're going to provide the curriculum. Police Department's going to help provide the staff. And then we're working with East Valley and Central Valley school districts this year to get 20 to 25 kids to come out. So we're going to meet once a week in the month of July for 3 hours, and we'll break the kids into groups and rotate through different sports stations. I'm talking with Itron and Schweitzer about doing a STEM station as well. So the kids will come, they'll play, they'll interact with law enforcement, and hopefully break some of those stereotypes and stigmas out there. So we're looking forward to piloting this program and getting it off the ground, and then evaluating it afterwards and see how to grow and expand that in the future. And then Play Unplugged is a company I came across this last summer. And the premise of this program is to get kids out and active, away from computers, away from the TV, away from video games. So to play unplugged. And so we partnered with all the school districts, all the Valley school districts in Freeman, elementary school age levels, and the kids will have up to 90 different brag badges that they can earn. And the brag badges are little to no cost, so very low barriers to entry for kids to go do. So it's flying a kite, it's taking a hike, it's going exploring, it's throwing a ball, bouncing on a trampoline, all kinds of good stuff that kids can do. So we're partnering with the business community to sponsor the badge. So the hook for the business community, not only supporting kids getting out and getting active, but the kids to pick up the badge have to come to that sponsoring business. So if the local Safeway here sponsors the Make S'mores badge, whenever the kids make s'mores, they would go to Safeway and from their customer service counter pick up their badge. The points that they earn on the badge will be a reward system that the school's going to come up with. So the more points you earn, the bigger rewards you can win when you get back to school. And so I've chatted with Katie, and so the City of Liberty Lake is going to sponsor the politician badge. Encouraging kids to check out their city council or their city staff or law enforcement or fire department, learn something about them, and then they would come here to pick up their badge. And when they're here, you can talk about the programs at Pavilion Park or your other city parks or the Barefoot coming up. So we can use it as a promotional tool. So we're looking forward to having that. Also for 2018, I just did our numbers for January, and we saw over 30,000 people through the hub in January. That's the first time we've broken 30,000 people in a month. The first year I was at the hub, we had 99,000 people go through over the course of the year. So that new interchange at Barker, that would be very helpful. So this is a chart that was in your packet that just shows the different places that we're gaining revenue in. Rental income, the big blue at the bottom, you can see that this last year, that was our biggest year ever for rental income. It actually was also our biggest year for donations and sponsorships. I do want to point out the 2008, 9, and 10, you can see a lot of donations there. Those donations were to prop the building up, to help pay for keeping the lights on and the doors open. That was my board of directors investing in the future of the hub. And so 2011 and 2012 and 2013 were the years that we had to figure out how to do it on our own. That we weren't going out and asking for donations to keep the building open. We had to figure out how we could keep the building open just through our operational pieces, which we're able to do. So the last 4 years have actually been an all-star breakfast that we've run to help expand our outreach programs. The Hub 360 to be able to be at 4 sites because of those donations we received there. The partnerships we have with other youth nonprofit organizations, we discount our court rentals to all the nonprofit groups that want to come in and use it. I would rather see 100 kids in there and make $10 a kid on that than have 10 kids in there and make $100 a kid. I'm walking away with the same amount of money, but I would much rather see kids out and active and learning. So the other big announcement that we'll officially do probably next week, but we purchased our facility. So the Inland Northwest Community Foundation had an anonymous donor that bought the building and set it aside for us to be able to run a capital campaign to buy it back. So $3.2 million was the price tag for it. I put a down payment of $1.6 million down at the end of February. I got a bridge loan as we were waiting for some other funding to come through, but we officially own the building. In 2018, we received a check from the Murdoch Charitable Trust for $350,000. We received the news the capital budget was passed, and thanks to Senator Padden and Representative Shea McCaslin, through 2 different avenues, we secured $800,000 in that state capital budget. $150,000 I have in pledges, $75,000 of which I have in hand. The other $75,000 are due this year. And so that leaves us a balance of about $300,000 to pay off our mortgage. And my goal is to get that done here in 2018 so we can be debt-free and be a permanent resource for this community and the kids and families here. So I really appreciate the support we get from the staff and the city council. You all have been very, again, supportive and part of the reason why we're here and doing what we do today. And we're excited about what we get to do in the future. So thank you.
Very impressive. Phil, first off, congratulations. talk a lot about connection with organization, family, and community amongst city council and how we can better achieve that goal. And I really have to commend you. I've said it once and I'll say it a million times. What your direction that you got going with that facility and the passion that you have for those kids, I can't commend you enough, man. I mean, it's just well done. Well done.
I ditto what Shane said. I'm sure Odin remembers sitting here in early 2008, trying to, looking at a request for us in the valley to chip in to help buy the hub, and I'm sure, I know it was tough on all of us, but we had to say no at this point. But wow, to see what you've done, and it's like Shane said, you can just see the passion in your face and hear it in your voice. What you've done over the last 10 years is just outstanding. If we could give you Citizen of the Year every day since then, I would be willing to do that. You've done great service to the community and to the kids.
Well, thank you. I've got a great team and a great board of directors and good community support from people out in the audience and again from all of you. It's not a one-person show, so I get to be in the chair and get to be the pretty face as best I can. But no, it's a team effort to get to where we're at today, and so we're in the home stretch. We're close on that end, and so yeah, we'll try and find avenues to secure that last $300,000 and maybe a couple bake sales or car washes. So,
thank you so much, Phil.
You bet.
You've been great.
Any questions?
Keep it up.
Great.
Great job.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. City Board and Commissions report. So we have library chair.
I'll just speak real quick. I know Pamela did a bigger report last time. I'm Tricia Morgan from the Library Board, by the way. So I just wanted just a couple of quick things about the board and the Friends and the library itself. The board, we are actively working with the city, starting the process to hire a new director for the library. So we've reached out to all of you individually. I hope we've talked to you. And then we have a facilitator, Tom Salberg, and he's going to work with the library staff and the Friends of the Library for similar input, and then we're going to put together our recruitment brochure with that input. Regarding the Friends of the Library, they had a Valentine Basket fundraiser and raised over $600. Another thing we want people to know, the Friends have changed their library time meeting. They're meeting the last Wednesday of each month at 2 o'clock at the libraries, and they've made them family friendly now, so we're trying to get more people in and maybe some younger people in so you can bring your kids and a volunteer will watch the kids and read to them. Also, the Friends purchased 2 passes to the Mobius Children's Museum, and so they're going to be available for different community members to be able to check those out, so maybe if people can't afford to go, so we're working on a system to be able to get those to different families in the community. And then at the library, just a couple of quick things. Events for children, adults, and families continue to be very well attended. We drew about 900 people into the library into the programs in January. In February, we have approximately 30 programs for youth and 5 adult programs scheduled by the staff. And then we also have lots of meetings and non-library events going on in our meeting room. And then finally, the library's created, it looks like this, it's the Homeschool Library Guide, which I can see there's lots of homeschool people at the hub as well, and we have them, and we want to make sure the library can help those people out. So they just need to contact the library, and they have lots of information and educational materials. And that is it.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you. Planning Commission, here. We're going to go to the top. Thank you. Where are you at? We have the Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District, other public agency reports. So now you have your own spot on the agenda.
But I don't have anything to report.
I'll be the first.
One thing, well, of course, given the opportunity, I'll find something. I think I may have reported previously that the district manager, Jay Adams, was recipient of an EPA award for the consolidation of East Side Blue Lake Improvement Plan. And I mention that because I like to brag about our people and their award, but also because although he received the award last year, he wasn't able to do the work because the lack of a decision in the legislature stopped all of the flow of projects. So, so now with his award in hand, but his project not yet started, March 6th, the project's going good, and we're optimistic that he'll get done this year. But aside from that, nothing to report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be glad to take questions.
Question?
Thanks.
So we're at 8, right?
Yes, so moving right along. The first item is an STA follow-up. Last council meeting, we talked about the need to fill a vacancy on the STA board. This is a position that the council selects, and we let STA know of the appointment. I did hear back from Councilmember Kaminskis that this was not a volunteer opportunity that she could move forward, so I thought I'd open it up to any other council members that might have interest in filling the position. I know that there are some that might are willing to be a backup, and if I'm not mistaken, Mayor, the meeting is once a month, is that correct? STA meetings are once a month?
Plus one. Well, let's see, are we the?
Twice a month?
It's 2.
Okay.
But are we the out?
This would be the non-voting.
So you're non-voting member. And then, but they have a steering, what's it? What are those policies?
Performance committee and then the administrative committee.
Yeah. So 2.
So there'd probably be two a month, about 3 hours each.
So if any other council member is interested in volunteering, we do have a backup. But if the backup doesn't hear anyone volunteer, there's a chance he might put his name in for the full-time position. So.
Nobody else is raising their hand.
I had said and told Katie that if no one else had an interest in doing it, I would assume that position.
So it doesn't look like there's going to be a...
Congratulations.
And I had talked to Mike as well. I am willing to be his backup.
Okay.
I just can't commit full
I would just like to point out to the audience that, no one said a word, no one would look, and suddenly I say I'll volunteer, and everybody, thank you for your support.
It only takes one, Mike. Good job.
Thank you for all your support.
So moving right along, we will bring back a resolution for your appointment at the next council meeting.
Yes.
The next item is a citizen survey, and we haven't talked about this to the whole council recently, but at our workshop last Tuesday, it came up with a strong desire for us to bring back more information, and that's what I'm doing tonight. I did send out a copy of a proposal that we received from Robinson Research, and Bill Robinson is here tonight. I thought as I was going to introduce him, giving you a little bit of background, but I think he's the expert here, and I really want you guys to understand kind of the value of his approach to surveying communities. And if you have any technical questions or other logistical questions, I'd love for you to ask those questions. We're not making a decision tonight necessarily, but it would be something that Bill has a tremendous amount of experience in doing this.
Before we get started, and Katie, I know I had expressed my, I don't want to say concern, but just some comments about this presentation. The presentation really isn't noticed in the agenda, which concerns me a little bit because I think there are a lot of community members who would have liked to have heard this presentation. So are there plans to bring this back for larger discussion with the council? Because I hate for, the agenda went out, this wasn't really on it, except just one bullet point about the survey. I don't think anyone was expecting a presentation. We just got the packet today, and I think to open this up to have more residents hear it is very important. Not to discount what we're going to hear tonight, but I don't feel like the presentation was noticed properly for our larger audience of the community to really know what was coming.
We did our best to, once the discussion was held at the workshop, to move quickly, and I have to say this, I wasn't going to, but happy birthday Bill, he's here on his, tonight is his birthday. I won't tell you which one. 29th, I think, maybe. Not quite. But certainly, whichever direction the council wants to go. I know that the strategic planning workshop, my takeaway was the sense of urgency of moving forward. And I think that even though the community might have a lot of questions, I think your experience in putting these kinds of surveys together have been incredibly valuable for council members and other electeds to get a good sense of the pulse of the community. So with that, Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Excuse me just a minute, sir, before you get started. Katie, we're having a presentation by this company, and this company has already decided how much it's going to charge to win the bid or to win the work, okay, which is noted in our agenda item here. And if that's the case, you know, I'm not interested in disparaging this man or his company, but certainly the advantage goes to him coming to make the presentation. On an item this large, $46,000 plus, I think we ought to be able to hear that a informational bid or a bid was let. We have other people who are interested in it and give them the opportunity to make the same presentation this gentleman's going to make. I just have a gut feeling that we're kind of giving a nod to this gentleman, and that's not the council's position.
If you please, I will leave the room and you can decide whether you want me to speak at all tonight. I won't be offended by anything. I understand what these folks are saying. Would you like me to leave while you can just discuss it and decide?
You're welcome to stand here and listen.
All right.
So to answer the question...
I'll stand down momentarily.
Okay, so when it was discussed at our workshop to move forward with the citizen survey, I did some research and I had a conversation with RJ, and I don't believe that there's any other local firms in Spokane that does this work. Bill and Robinson Research has been in the business since 1979 and has done, you know, I won't go through his whole resume. I also learned that this is a professional service and that we're not required to get quotes from other vendors. Now, also moving forward to, we always want to make sure that the city is getting the best value for their dollar. And based on the research that I did and the conversations that I had with Bill and his team, the experience that they brought of, I don't know, since 1979, and the amount of 3,000 surveys that they did, I thought their qualifications spoke for themselves. We do have some dollars set aside in our budget for community outreach, and this is kind of a step in that direction. I'll tell you, I am not an expert in this. I have seen many, many communities do these on a regular basis. They invest in these kinds of surveys because you take all of the, I'll say, subjective rumors, bias out of it, because these are very qualitative and quantitative. And so I'm not forcing you guys to do anything. I'm just sharing with you my thoughts of how we got to tonight. So,
well, there's no doubt in our minds, at least not mine, that the gentleman is more than qualified to conduct the survey. That's not the question. The question is advantage, overall cost, and is it the body's intent to bid, even though it's not necessary, or are we just going to go with a recommendation from staff and move forward? And if that's what they vote, I'm 100% with it, okay? But I do want to give everybody the opportunity to say, yes, we want to roll this way or we don't.
What I heard last week when we met at the workshop was to move forward with the survey, and this is a company that we went with. We want to move fast, bring this company in.
Yes.
So we heard that was approached for it. It wasn't a request to go out and solicit.
Well, sir, I think that if you check the record, we were all on board with having a survey conducted, and we asked you to bring back information. We did not ask you to bring back an individual to address us with a price point already in mind. okay? If you can point that out to me in the essay, I will acquiesce and say, I'm sorry.
Well, I will.
But I do think that we do want to move forward with the gaining of information. But I don't believe it was so urgent that we had to pick somebody in a 2-week period.
I may be mistaken, but I do recall their name being brought up.
Name was brought up. That's correct.
And I appreciate you coming, and I want to hear the information, but I do agree with Chris that we need to, with all this information we gather, we need to put it out there so that the community can come back and hear us kind of recap to them, if you will, or if he's willing to come back for the citizens that want to hear about it, one or the other. I would like to give the citizens an opportunity to hear what's being discussed, so they're aware and prepared for the survey.
I'm fine with anything. I'm not going to be. I won't scratch your cars on the way out of here. It's all fine with me. Whatever be the pleasure.
I mean, I'd love to hear the information you brought tonight.
Here's the deal, from what I got out of that meeting last week, was that we talked about having Robinson Research, we mentioned his name, to put together, or at least get an understanding, some kind of an input as to what we were looking at. Not to contract with him initially and say, okay, hey, you bring us a contract, but just to talk about how we're going to get there in surveying our community. And what's the best, what in his profession is kind of the best way to do it. You know, how many people you're going to have to survey, you know, and one of the things we did do, we met with him in between. We showed him some strategic plans from other cities. So this is kind of the information we're trying to discern. So, because initially we talked about last week, I guess it is, at that meeting, that, you know, we want to do a survey. Well, then we're talking to Bill, and we're going, you know, we're talking about a survey, and well, maybe you want to do focus groups before you go to a survey. There's lots of other things, lots of moving parts. This was just an informational piece of the meeting tonight, based on what the input was we got from you last week. And we thought it would bring it to council. Again, you'll come back to the council. As we go through the strategic planning process, there'll be more than ample time for the public to weigh in on what survey is, what the question we want to ask, what the council to establish what is it we're trying to get to, the objectives. This is just saying, hey, this is what, you know, the district, I think Agnew, Tom's still here, the district's gone through for 20 years. So we were fortunate enough to get Bill here to bring his expertise just to talk to the council and get their inquiries. Not to buy anything, not to sell anything, just to get their questions answered. So that's why he was invited.
Yes, unfortunately, I had to miss the meeting last week. And I think it's probably the first or second meeting that I've missed in 7 years of community service. So I may have heard that, but anyway, outside of listening to the recording, which I did with the help of Dan and Tricia on staff, who gave me the link to listen to the recording. It's the first time that I've done that. But anyway, outside of that, I wasn't involved in the discussion. And, you know, my only exposure was what I received today. And I haven't really had the time to review it or evaluate it and render an opinion on it. I do know that Mr. Robinson's name came up previously when there was a request by the mayor to have a survey as to why the bond issue, the last bond issue failed. And at that time, I think council declined to retain Mr. Robinson at that time. But I'd like an opportunity really to kind of review it and see. I wasn't at the meeting and I don't know, I didn't hear the discussions about it. there are a lot of forms that surveys can take. Previously, the city had online surveys for people in order to try to establish what the priorities of the residents were. They certainly weren't as professional, I'm sure, as Mr. Robinson can provide.
I guarantee that.
But there may be other opportunities, and I think other people who might be interested in proposing a contract for a survey for the city. I'd like to know who they are. Maybe he's the only game in town. I don't know. And I know that maybe the mayor and Katie speak very highly of Mr. Robinson, but I don't know who his competitors are, or if there anyone else is interested in making a proposal to the city. But I'd like to see at least one other proposal.
Well, I want to reiterate, the mayor's point that he's here just to give us information. He's not here to win a bid. That's not what this is for. It's more just strictly for information, and I welcome that. We had a good discussion about this at the last meeting, and I think it's important that we gather as much information as possible to make the best decision when that time comes and we need to pull the trigger. So I welcome that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry, let's hear from Mike. Excuse me.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I simply was going to reiterate is that this did come up last week, and it was a consensus of everybody who was here that we move forward to gather information, and that's what I see tonight. I read this letter today. Very impressive. I did see the dollar amounts, but the dollar amounts are variable depending on what we select. I would, for one, would like to hear the information. I don't think we have to get into the dollar amounts because it would come into, we want to have 2 focus groups, 4, 6, and there's variables there that determine the cost. But I support what we did talk about last week, so to move ahead to get information, so I like it.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, you read it cover to cover. You know I pitched Robinson Research for everything I've learned. Well, I'll try my best not to do that. I'll try to be nuts and bolts, and if you catch me going off into the wonders of our company, you can whistle or throw something, and I'll back off. Okay, let's see here. Yes, today's my 65th birthday. Let's talk about focus groups and telephone surveys. If you already know what the questions are, we're tracking this all the time. Like we've done work for Chelan PUD since 1982. We do the same surveys every year. Once in a while there's a focus group just to kind of find out what's new on the block. Because we already kind of know what the issues are. But if we don't know what the issues are, it's best that we not just say, oh, we know what they are, and we make a survey and then we skip key points. And people come back and say, why didn't you ask about this? Or why didn't you ask about that? And communities have anomalies. Every community has a few things that makes them stand out from the crowd. For years in Sandpoint, the big issue was, well, should we move the rifle range that's in the middle of town out of town or keep it in the middle of town? You think, who would ever guess that? Well, focus groups flesh that kind of thing out. Ellensburg, Washington. Can we just spray for Walmart? How do we kill them? If we can't kill them, where should we put them? That's a big issue there. So you find that there are things like that that just stand out in communities. Focus groups are not a quantitative question. We can't say, well, 2/3 of the focus group said this, so 2/3 of the community believes this too. In fact, I specifically avoid hard numbers. If I ask for a show of hands, I'll say, oh, about half. I won't even quote a number so that people can't inappropriately do that. But we find out how people are characterizing things. In Spokane, they've got a bridge from the University District over to Sprague Avenue, and none of the official information about that would ever tell you how the citizens characterize that. But listening to them, you certainly get an idea. They call it the bridge. I can't remember what it was, but it was a bridge to something that angers the mayor there. And so the focus groups give us the big picture. when you're looking for a lost little kid, you have a hand-to-hand, shoulder-to-shoulder march through to find them. You also find the old geezers of the sheriff's posse that ride out on horses and try to find them. They can cover a lot of ground really fast. The focus groups are the old geezers on horseback. They're out there looking everywhere, so forth. The quantitative survey is the organized march of every square foot. I've seen a lot of times where we did focus groups and said, well, why did we even test that? Did we really need to know to that level of accuracy what percentage of people believe that? I've seen more times where they thought, well, why did we even do the phone survey than I have, why did we do the focus groups? And the focus groups are, they add underlying feelings and so forth. Sometimes the numbers can be just as dry as can be, and the comments in the focus groups give us a chance to go back and cross-reference. So that's why we do it. And then focus groups are always conducted in pairs. Ideally they are, because it's a small group. You can have one or two people that are pretty influential or something, and so just to be on the safe side. Like, I was doing some work for the Wazoo and the Forest Service, so we did 5 focus groups in 5 cities, and they were going, oh, this is great, let's publish it in the Journal of Forestry. And it's like, sorry, we only did 1 in each town, it isn't going to fly. So they had to go back and we had to go visit each town over again to get 2 in order to have inclusion in a scientific journal. So you want every focus group, you want a focus group to be comprised of people who have something in common. The more they have in common, the more you'll get a good conversation. Go ahead.
Real quick question. How do you select a focus group?
Well, we're going to buy, if we are so fortunate as to be awarded this job, we will buy a very good quality commercial sample of voters. I don't know how you voted, but I know when you voted. And so we generally choose, what I recommended here is what are called good voters. They voted in 3 plus of the last 4 elections. I think that would probably give you the best view of the city. If you want something else like just registered voters, we can do that too. But I was planning on using the same sample list for the focus groups, and we cross those out. We wouldn't then re-interview the people in the focus groups.
And then how do you know that the focus group is, I'll say, demographically diverse in representing your community, so they're not all the same gender or the same age?
Well, when we do it, this is by invitation only. This isn't one of those y'all come things where, you know, anybody with an axe to grind shows up. We select very carefully, and we have quotas for all these things based on the demographics of the community. The more we go toward good voters or perfect voters, the older they get. So if you want us to vote, to find people who always vote while the rest of us are waxing our votes, they'll be even older than me. It'll be, well, the average will skew older, and it's just kind of a trade-off there. So is it representative of the community, or is it representative of those who vote? That's a decision for you folks to wrestle with, and I'll help with that, but I don't want to push that.
Question. It's my understanding, Mr. Robinson, in reading this, that you select the individuals who are going to be surveyed. You do not operate off of a list that comes from council members, mayor, or citizens.
No, we specifically avoid that.
Thank you.
We're very, very, very careful. And we also run through and make sure there aren't people that are, you know, perpetual respondents or something. There's the relationship with the people who do that is such that we make sure that we're not getting the same people all the time. We don't have any kind of database that we choose from for focus groups or anything. It's fresh every time. Let's see here.
Another question. How do you come up with the questions to ask these individuals, citizens of Liberty Lake? How are the questions determined?
Well, we figure out what you folks value. We submit a whole list of anything we could possibly think of, which would be way too long if you chose them. It was a separate attachment to what we sent there. So I need a key contact when I'm doing this, so let's assume it's Katie. Katie, talking to you folks, gives us a sense of an ABC priority for the topics, and then we come back and we try to make them fit into the length of the survey as necessary. And the first draft will probably come in long, and then you folks decide what you want to weed to get down there. And if you weed something that I need to cross tab against, I'll fight you on it. But for most part, it's your choice there on the topics. There are certain things that I really like to see in there because I can compare it to other cities and so forth, but it's just kind of a give and take.
Surveys that make me nervous are the surveys where there's preconceived questions. It's really easy to get the answer on how you ask the question.
Be front-loaded for a specific response.
That is always a concern of mine.
It's a huge concern of mine, too. We turn down a lot of work because of that. They insist on questions that are worded some way that's front-loaded for a response, and we reject it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. What might we expect as a final product of the surveys?
What's it
going to look like when you're done?
The focus groups, you'll get a key findings summary, which we do a whole bunch of analysis, what people are talking about. We don't use software to do that, by the way. There's software that purports to do that, but it's just a meticulous hand job. I'm sorry. We just do a hand job of looking through all that, and you get a key findings summary. From that, we'll make recommendations that we use in crafting the telephone survey based upon our findings there. There'll be certain topics that we float in the focus group that just fall flat. So we say, well, why run the phone survey? We kind of know this. Let's just set this aside and focus on the things that might be on the bubble or whatever. And we just work it up and submit it until we and the clients, you folks, are pleased with how it came out.
And how do you maintain complete and absolute objectivity in developing your report?
Well, I make my living at maintaining complete objectivity. I never attend any kind of political functions, like when somebody wins or loses in a campaign. I never go to their champagne party or their crying their beer party. I just stay completely away from that sort of thing. We do so many of these. I just really can't have an axe to grind on everything. Just making sure that we did it correctly and all that. I'm more than busy enough just making sure that it's all done properly.
Thank you.
I hope nobody can ever point out a time where I put my thumb on the scale on anything. I'm sure trying not to.
Thank you very much.
So what would be the difference in the value of the information using a qualitative, quantitative survey as opposed to social media, other kinds of, I'll say, public meetings and those kinds of things? Because there's a distinct difference between the survey that you're describing and the survey that sometimes municipalities complete.
Well, we sell scientific surveys and focus groups that are designed to be as scientific as possible. Sometimes we'll do the light rail coming out to Liberty Lake and stuff. They had open sharettes where everybody could show up. Anybody that wanted to voice an opinion could show up at all those. They ran parallel with focus groups by invitation only, and you get a really different mix. If you watch the Spokane City Council on Channel 5, you see the same people every week. And so, you get in something that's just, hey, it's an open forum, you get people with strong feelings. Some of those things they would have us videotape, and the hardest thing was getting a video that showed actual citizens, not just somebody that had an axe to grind. They use their own property along the right-of-way or railroad or STA or something. And so ours is an absolute attempt to get pure sampling, where you have to do those where people are allowed to come and show them what you want, but they're just two different things. You'll get groups of people that all speak in unison in that sort of public gathering. And about social media, that stuff can all get whipsawed. It happens quite often. What's the nice way to say this? Internet surveys aren't worth the bucket of spit. That's pretty much what you're looking at. We get asked to put those in. You know, RFPs require mixed methodology. Well, you can't mix the two anyway. I won't go into all the details, but you can't mix a phone survey, internet survey, put them together and call them one big happy sampling. And the internet surveys they just don't produce. I mean, the verbatim responses are 1 and 2 comments. Telephone survey, people are probing, well, in what way is that? You know, somebody says, well, this vacuum cleaner sucks. Are you bragging or complaining? In what way does it suck? Does that mean it really pulls the dirt in, or does this mean there's something wrong and you hate it? There are people right there to clarify that. You never get that in something that's just pure web-based. We do them, but really only when we have to. I mean, the quality difference is huge.
Thanks, Mayor. In reading this, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly in reading this today, as we go through this process, if we go this route, we get the survey and then it's somewhat reviewed with council, the mayor, and staff, or Katie, and then we can tweak it and continue on. Is that correct?
Yes, as long as we're not changing the key findings. I mean, I have the state of what the data actually says, but yes, we submit a draft and
we're participating in this as we go along.
Yes, you know, like we did something for the Spokane Valley Fire Department, and I had some confusion as what's an EMT and what's a true medic, and then they say, okay, look, everybody's one, you know, so my terminology was slightly off, so you know they helped me get that correct, or you know, I referred to a 10-year plan as in, no, it's 5 years, and that happened to me in another city, where, you know, just helping with making sure that's all correct.
By asking that question is that I want to be comfortable that if we move ahead with this, that it's just not something that's done off over here, and we're given the end result, and there's been no participation leading up to that. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, I want to get paid, so I want to make sure you all have buy-in on it. Sure. I mean, it's no secret this is coming out. One thing I really appreciate is that they don't print the questionnaire in the paper. That happens in Coeur d'Alene. Somebody always gives something to Coeur d'Alene Press, and then our unaided questions, so we're trying to see what's on their mind before we educate them, they all got freshly educated by the Coeur d'Alene Press. So I like to not have our instrument out there for everyone's perusal before we do the survey. But other than that, there's nothing very secret. Everything we do is public. It's a public entity. So, you know, we have to be careful when we go through the boilerplate if we're doing something for some private entity and we're promising absolute confidentiality. That's a deal killer with a public entity.
Thank you.
Yes?
Bill, did I understand that the qualitative or focus group functions precede the quantitative or phone-based surveys?
That's correct.
The focus group activity is actually used to form the questions that are used in the quantitative section.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they mop up later with focus groups too. In this case, we haven't done this for so long here, we don't have that much perspective. I'd really like to get a feel for, you know, what are the issues in the minds of the public and kind of some sense of how much emphasis based on we get from the focus groups. The reason we gave you 3 choices on the number of focus groups, I don't know to what degree the citizens here are all one big happy family, and the degree to which you have kind of different factions. Like in Coeur d'Alene, there's the people right down by the lake, there's the people north of Appleway, there's the people in between. And whether those are legal designations, I don't know, but there's tribalism there and you better know it when you're doing it. So we usually split Coeur d'Alene 3 ways based on that. But I don't know what your splits are here. I don't have that kind of experience. So if you have if you have different kinds of folks and it divides out somehow, then we should be prepared to have the 2 focus groups with identical screening requirements. But if we get one of everything, there's 12 people in the group, they'll have 12 different conversations that won't gel, and it really hurts words makes it hard to write to that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. If I pitched this, I'm sorry.
You've done good.
As we go down the strategic planning process, the goal is to have community involvement. So we really appreciate you coming out and sharing with us. So, being part of our discussion with what's out there.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Take care.
Okay, the next item, real quickly, Jen and Stephen are going to talk a little bit about Public Works Yard. This is just to kind of give a short reminder of kind of the needs that we've had over the last several years, and I think they've done some research that they want to share with you.
Next slide. So we just want to share with you all some of the discussion that we have year to year about how we're going to grow physically, where we're going to put everything as we get bigger, as we take on more responsibility maintenance-wise. Real quick, I'm going to keep this quick. In 2011, when I started, we had a staff. Our peak staff was 10 people and 2 FTEs. This year, we're anticipating 30 staff and 12 FTEs at our peak. And with that comes equipment to get these people moving and working. And with our equipment in 2011, we had 2 of 4 bays out there that were full of equipment. And as of right now, we have 3 full bays of equipment. One of those is a mechanic space. We have grown, overflowed into the back, right back along here. We do try to keep things neat, but it's hard to keep locks and piles and stuff not looking like junk. So the guys do the best they can. But this is a view from this hill looking down. Right now, this was just taken a few days ago. But you can see the driving range fence, and for years I told the crew, do not put anything back here. I don't care what you have to do, don't put it back here. We're at a point where we have nowhere else to put it. So we're kind of creeping up this slope right behind here. Every year we've tended to park all of our big snow equipment back here. Obviously, with the conversation earlier, if we do, have equipment here year-round, is that going to sit out back year-round? Probably not the best situation for the equipment, not the best situation for the homeowners looking down on it. We've done our best to screen that hill. We can only get so high, so they still see quite a bit, although they're really good about not complaining. So, next slide. So as we've grown, there's just more pictures. Move it to the next one. Yeah. So as we've grown, this is one of our bays out here right now. We have in 2014 we've tried to grow in increments in satellite, what we call satellite maintenance areas. And the first one was at Rocky Hill Barn. We had a great idea to make that a storage space, and so the guys got it all fixed up. And sure enough, it is full. It is full to the brim, edge to edge, with storage equipment, especially this time of year when stuff stays parked. Obviously, during the days, things move out in the season. In 2015 and 16, 15 and or 16, we built on a pavilion, and there's a storage space on the back side of the pavilion restroom building that is full. And it doesn't hold a lot, but it sure takes the edge off us, and it allows us to have our equipment available up there, ready to go. As of this year, this is the new maintenance shed at CV that they built, and they're allowing us to store our equipment in for the baseball fields. It's north of the new Liberty Creek Elementary School. And so we have our half, I believe we have half of the building is full. So we are at a point where we are bursting at the seams and really have nowhere to go. And so we constantly talk, what are we going to do? And here we're discussing large-scale equipment. What are we going to do? So from there, I think this is my last slide. From there, he's going to just share with you some of the things we talk about. All this is for you is what a yard might look like, what it looks like right now versus what it could look like. And Stephen's going to just share with you some examples of where these are from. So we just want you to understand, and I thought that a picture was worth 1,000 words, so that you can actually see how full we are. I wish I could take you all on the tour. edge to edge, we've got to do something. And I know that that discussion has been happening over time, and it's a period of a process to get from point A to point B, and we don't have the answers, but we have suggestions, and we have ideas of what other municipalities do. So.
Shortly after I started, Katie came up and goes, well, what do you think? I said, well, it's nice. She goes, you need anything? I said, yeah, I need a shop in the yard. It depends on how elaborate you want to get. So I went out and visited a couple of places. I went out and visited Post Falls because Post Falls has a very elaborate yard. They got lucky and they got an old Mazda dealership. So when they moved in, this was already installed. They had about 8 different hoists set up. They had, I think they've got roughly 8 acres or 10 acres, somewhere along that line. I don't think we need that much. They are leasing their land from their sewer district. They've got a beautiful open shed, which I would see us having to supply and house everything and keep it out of the view. This is about the only part that they added on. And they had to do that because of the large doors for the equipment and for the larger trucks. They also have, what you really can't see right here, this is a hoist that can lift the trucks when they're empty, full. I mean, it's a very nice hoist. I used to have one at one of my old jobs. I don't think we need to get that elaborate. I mean, this is very expensive, and we're just not to that point yet. What I do think we could use, though, this will change, Spokane Valley. They've got a very plain, simple yard. They have a shop that you can pull the equipment into, and just off to the side, you can see where they have like a small office space where we could house. They have a small little storage shed for sand. They use for salt. You can see they have their de-ice paints out here for housing. I think they keep a lot more than what we would. But then they just have an area that's open. Eco blocks to create little bins, which I can see us having to keep things nice and neat and storage on hand. And the only picture I didn't get was about right here. They just park their equipment out. It's very neat, it's simple, and it's not too ungodly expensive as compared to something like this. So, I mean, as we grow, we are going to need something in order to house all the equipment, like Jen says. We're anticipating more people. The street department coming on, there's going to be more equipment, not just on the larger side, but even the smaller stuff, gators, things like that to move the people around. When we start getting into swale removal, we're going to have a place to dump all the excess dirt we dig out. We're going to have a place to store stockpile materials rather than always just sending a truck down for, say, 2 yards of drain rock. We'd be able to get 10 yards or so and keep it on hand, which will save a little time and money as it goes on. Is there any questions or anything about what yard or? They're not very pretty, but you can keep them clean, so they're not too bad. Yes?
Actually, my question may be more for Amanda or Andy, you might know. About how many more new lane miles are we expecting between now and build out of public roads, not private ones? I mean, I would expect you to have that off right off the top of your head.
So basically, we have all the public roads in the river district and river crossings.
By the time it's all said and done, I would expect another 30 to 40.
Another 30 to 40 lane miles.
We're about 50 lane miles now.
No, we're about 100 lane miles.
100 lane miles, so about another
That's
30%.
Thanks.
And the other thing I just wanted to kind of mention, our goal tonight was not to have you make a decision.
Right.
This is to plant a seed for future discussions, so.
Sharing with you the discussions that we have from a functional staffing side.
That's funny, I happened to drive right by the Post Falls one this weekend and was thinking about it, and it just kind of stood out at me. So, yeah, their place is huge.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a conference room bigger than this room, the showroom floor, so, I mean, it's nice.
Yes, I think that all this is pertinent, I think, to our strategic planning for the future. I've requested from the staff, and I still haven't seen it, I've requested a projection of population growth for the city, staffing requirements for each department within the city as population grows and level of service standards for each department within the city. I'm still waiting to see some information concerning that. I don't know what your staffing requirements are going to be 10 years from now. I don't know what your equipment requirements are going to be 10 years from now. Okay? And I don't know that for every department within the city. There has to be a correlation between the level of service standards and staffing and equipment requirements. And I think we have to know that. If we're going to make any decisions about what the city's going to look like 10 years from now. Now, it's not rocket science. It's things that can easily be calculated, or at least guessed. We can make a guesstimate as to what it's going to be. But we need some information concerning that so we can quit reacting and having another crisis. Now we have a storage crisis, equipment storage crisis. Okay. So I don't know what the next crisis is going to be. This is the things we're trying to address through strategic planning, and we don't have all the facts. Do you know what your requirements are going to be 10 years from now?
Not at this moment, no.
No. Okay.
I would say
I don't either.
Yeah, and I would say it's going to be hard for me too, because it depends on how many more collectors and arterials we get that we add on to, how much more commercial, and
what your staffing requirements are going to be. I mean, we should know historically, if we trace historically what the growth has been for your staffing, and we can project out then from the population growth what your future staffing requirements are going to be, what your equipment requirements are going to be, what your storage requirements are going to be. But until we do that, first of all, starting with a correlation between population growth, staffing, and levels of service, we're never going to get to the answer, to the solution. And again, it's not rocket science.
Bob, you make some really good points. You know, it'd be nice to have all the forecast information, but just to let you know, we're on board. You know, you have a problem, all right, and it does need to be addressed. We want to address it. We don't want to sweep it away. But to Bob's point, this is something that should have started planning years ago, because no city grows without getting more equipment, okay? And we've known for a long, and we're not blaming you, we're blaming us, because we've known for a long time that you use this area back here to park things, okay? So we're right there with you. We agree you need some relief.
And staff has made great use of every satellite facility we could possibly think of, you know, and trying to fill that out, and it's worked out very well. So
it's time to take the next step.
I'm not blaming you.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So I'm almost done. Long report here. Their polar plunge is this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And finally, the meeting schedule next Tuesday, a week from tonight. We have an agenda that was established at last week's strategic meeting. One is on the trailhead irrigation, and again, we're sharing information with you. This isn't all crisis stuff, but we want to give you information about the trailhead irrigation and also the financial on the trailhead operations, and then also talk about the sales tax. That came out of our agenda last Tuesday.
Katie, I just found out last minute that I'm going to be out of town next week.
Okay.
Going out for work, so I won't be at that meeting.
Okay, and then there was a discussion about the time. There was a request to make it 7 and then 6, so we kind of compromised and we just called it 6:30. But let's see, let me ask a different question. Does the council want to have the workshop on February 27th, or would you rather we move it to March 13th?
27th?
27th. Yeah, I think, yeah, sure.
Okay.
27th.
Okay. And then March 6th is our next council meeting. Start at 5:30 with a committee workshop, and then our council meeting will start at 7.
Question, Katie?
Yes.
What do you foresee in the sales tax workshop?
So what we're doing is, actually we being RJ, I'll be honest, there was a lot of questions about, in our last workshop, about what if the economy goes south and we lose a lot of sales tax. But we're going to work on that internally, and we're going to play out that for you so that if the sales tax does go down, how we would balance a budget in a downtime. Because we know that, roughly 60% of our revenue from this past year came from sales tax. And so if we didn't have, if we brought it down during a recession, what would the dollar amount be, and what impact would that have on our services? And we want to show you what that looks like.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. So now, we are at the consent agenda. Okay.
I move action on consent agenda 1 and 2 to approve January 23rd, 2018, February 6th, 2018, and February 13th, 2018 City Council minutes, and to approve February 20th vouchers in the amount of $66,098.03.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
I move general business number 1 to award the base bid in the amount of $46,520 to Bacon Concrete for the Country Vista pedestrian crossing project, and to approve an owner's construction contingency of 5%, $2,500, that will be managed by staff.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move general business number 2 to award base bid in the amount of $29,220.21 to Pavement Surface Control for the East Appleway restriping project, and to approve an owner's construction contingency of 10%, $3,000, that will be managed by staff.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Resolution N-0248.
City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, Resolution Number 02-048D. A resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending Resolution Number 02-048C, passed by the City Council on June 21st, 2016, entitled A Resolution Adopting a Financial Management Policy for the City of Liberty Lake, Washington.
Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the resolution as amended during our earlier workshop with the verbiage.
Second.
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 Chris, we reiterate
Yeah, I
those.
will. So, first one being section 1310.9, changing shall to may in that paragraph. Second was clarifying the ranges of approvals to better clarify 1,000 versus 1,001 cent, and changing the title of attachment C to attachment A.
Is that complete for you?
So that was the motion?
Yes, sir.
So there was a second to that?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion, not hearing, all in favor, raise your right hand. Count 6 out of 6, is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
First read ordinances, Ann.
City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, ordinance number 175C, an ordinance amending the City of Liberty Lake Planning Commission bylaws. Ordinance number 110-A, City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, an ordinance amending ordinance number 110 related to stopping, standing, parking, and impoundment of unauthorized vehicles.
Upcoming agenda items, Kate. Any introducing of upcoming agenda items?
Yes, I was just confirming something. So the next council meeting on March 6th, we'll start with a workshop, Finance, Library, and Public Safety at 5:30. Then at 7 o'clock, we will have a restaurant agreement with Blinkies, which has been discussed. That will be ready. Tentatively, we will have the IT contract upgrades for this council chambers. We're working on getting that brought forward. Then the second read items on the ordinances that we just discussed.
Okay, we're going to go into executive session, but before that, we're going to collect citizen comments one last time tonight. That's okay. So any
citizen comments. Community, we're some wonderful citizens. We'd love to have you comment. Or you can participate in the next survey that comes out. Anyway, thank you very much. It'll be 5 minutes in the executive session, then we'll come out and adjourn. Thank you very much.
8:40. Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.